Chapter 998. You are the Sword Emperor? An immortal cultivator asked coldly. His sharp gaze fell on Zhou Xuanji as if he wanted to see through him. Zhou Xuanji gave a smile that did not seem like a smile as he asked, You are from the Eastern Endless Royal Clan? Where is your patriarch Zongji? Zongji. On the surface, he was the strongest expert in the Eastern Endless Continent, comparable to the ancient peerless geniuses. However, Gujuagio was even more famous. He was hailed as the most promising existence to surpass Guzun 3 heavens. He was also the most likely existence to unify the 4 directions. Dealing with the likes of you is not worthy of my patriarch's hand. Another imperishable snorted. As his voice fell, the 10 imperishable experts raised their hands at the same time. Boom! They emitted a dazzling light, and their bodies quickly merged together to form a stalwart figure. Was this a fusion? Zhou Xuanji's gaze was strange, but he did not panic. Instead, he took a step forward. I'll let you guys have a taste of my new divine ability. He smiled proudly and raised his right hand. The oppressive divine sword shone with silver light. The light stretched and it was incomparably divine. Hong Qin Saint Monarch and Sir God felt his aura and their expressions changed. My lord, this aura, the divine lord said with a trembling voice. He could not even complete his sentence. Hong Qin Lord couldn't help but reveal a look of anticipation when he recalled the previous battle with a Cardinal Heaven expert. He must have become stronger. Zhou Xuanji quickly fused a faded fate pearl into the Sword of Light. At the same time, his soul was chanting the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra to help him maintain the sword. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead, and the light on his body began to flicker, as if it could be extinguished at any moment. Sword Emperor. Remember, the one who killed you is our 10-aspect divine Luo. The 10 imperishable realm experts roared, their might shaking the universe. The living beings who were fighting all turned around and gasped when they saw his silhouette. What a terrifying aura. 10 aspects divine Luo did not reveal his true face. His whole body exuded a scorching red light. He raised his hands, and a large blade condensed in his hands. He directly rushed towards Zhou Xuanji. The terrifying figure, which was several million zhang tall, was extremely frightening when it sprinted. Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change. He put down the Sword of Light and furiously roared as he slashed out. Bang! A strong light flashed, and all living beings subconsciously closed their eyes. An indescribably terrifying pressure enveloped all the creatures, making them feel as if they were in a cold cellar. Their souls were suffering from extreme torment, as if they could explode at any moment. Even Qin Xingjun, who was as strong as a rainbow, was shuddering in fear at this moment, unable to open his eyes. Numerous shrill cries sounded out in succession, adding a sense of horror to the battlefield. After the radiance faded, Zhou Xuanji could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. This sword almost sucked him dry. He looked over, but could no longer see the figure of 10 aspects divine Luo. Hiss! Hong Qin Sacred Monarch and Divine Monarch gasped. They knew that Zhou Xuanji was very powerful, but they did not expect him to be so powerful that he could kill 10 immortal cultivators with a single strike. Indestructible. This realm represented immortality and indestructibility. Logically speaking, no matter how strong one's power was, it was impossible to destroy both their bodies and souls. They could not understand how Zhou Xuanji did it. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless, but he was pleasantly surprised in his heart. The fated Fate Pearl's power had indeed surpassed the imperishable level. Not only the fated pearl, but also the Constitution-defying creation scripture. This was a powerful cultivation technique that had appeared before the birth of the boundless universe. Zhou Xuanji turned around and looked at the dumbfounded Eastern Infinity cultivators and cried, Those who surrender will be spared. As soon as he spoke, many cultivators began to flee. Zhou Xuanji gave Hong Qin Sacred Monarch and Divine Monarch a look, and the two immediately understood. Zhou Xuanji activated the spiritless state and quickly flew back to the Star Hall to recuperate. The battlefield was in an uproar. Too powerful. Our Sword Emperor is invincible. No wonder Cardinal Heaven was willing to share Northern Infinity with him. Ha ha ha, I told you. Eastern Infinity can't even fight their way in. I heard that the Sword Emperor is only 10,000 years old. 10,000 years old? Impossible. You can't reach this level of power even if you're 100 billion years old. No matter what, our Sword Emperor Divine Court will definitely reach the pinnacle under his leadership. After returning to the Star Hall, Zhou Xuanji sat down to recuperate his aura. He felt a little regretful. If that strike contained world internalization, wouldn't his cultivation soar? It was a pity that he couldn't use the profound meaning of world internalization in that strike. What should I call this strike? Zhou Xuanji pondered as he recuperated. Just as he was thinking, the news of him killing Ten Xiangshan Luo began to spread. First, it spread to every battlefield. On the Sword Emperor Divine Court side, everyone who heard it felt their blood boiling. The Eastern Infinity cultivators were shocked. Ten Xiangshan Luo was a legend in Eastern Infinity. His status was even higher than Hong Qin's sacred monarchs in Northern Infinity. Such a powerful cultivator was killed instantly by the Sword Emperor? How could it be? Their first reaction was disbelief. But when their own spies came back with the news, they were all frightened out of their wits. Immediately, the Sword Emperor's fame spread far and wide. The news reached the Cardinal Heaven's ears. Sitting in the palanquin, he couldn't help but frown and mumble, "This brat is already so powerful? Impossible." He had heard of Ten Xiangshan Luo's power. Eastern Infinity sending Ten Xiangshan Luo already showed his determination. He began to calculate with his fingers. The next second, his frown deepened. How did he do it? Could it be that he has already awakened the power of his previous life? Cardinal Heaven experts had complicated expressions on their faces. There was unwillingness, shock, regret, and anger. He viewed Hong Meng Heaven as his lifelong enemy. How could he allow Hong Meng Heaven to surpass him? However, he had no choice. Right now, the more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the better it was for him. In the end, he could only let out a sigh. Sigh. In the endless east, under the scarlet sky, Zhong Ji and Bai Yinzi sat opposite each other. How long will it take for your royal family to seize the northern limitless territory? Bai Yinzi asked. Zhong Ji replied with a smile, "It depends on how weak Bei Wujin is right now. I've sent out 10 aspect Shenluo. Unless a Cardinal Heaven expert personally takes action, it will be very difficult to defeat 10 aspect Shenluo. After all, the demonic emperor, Tang Xuanwu, and other experts were all wiped out by a Cardinal Heaven expert." Bai Yinzi narrowed his eyes and lamented, "Even 10 aspects Shenluo was sent out. How ruthless." He changed the topic and said, "After this is done, don't forget the agreement between you and our lawless zone. I need information on the lawless fire god." No fire god. Hearing this name, Zhong Ji's eyelids twitched slightly. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, once there is news, I will inform you immediately. By the way, how did no fire god escape?" Bai Yinzi shook his head and sighed, "This incident alarmed our Saint Altar. You should know that guy's power. It would be fine if he was in the lawless zone, but I'm afraid that he has already escaped into the endless universe." Zhong Ji frowned. He began to worry that no fire god had already sneaked into Eastern Infinity. If that was the case, it would be extremely disadvantageous for the upcoming war. At this moment, a figure appeared beside them and half knelt. "Report. 10 aspect Shenluo has fallen in battle," the person said in a deep voice, sounding a little panicked. Chapter 999. 10 Xiangshan Luo had fallen. Zhong Ji and Bai Yinzi heard this and their expressions changed drastically. How could it be? Zhong Ji slammed the table and cried out with a deep voice, "Speak! Who killed him? Could it be a Cardinal Heaven? Wasn't a Cardinal Heaven heavily injured and had yet to recover? It's the Sword Emperor." The Sword Emperor killed 10 Xiangshan Luo instantly with just one slash. Over 100 million soldiers have been captured. The informant replied with gritted teeth. His body was trembling as he spoke. Within Eastern Boundless, everyone thought that it was a sure thing to swallow up Northern Boundless. But it was a bad start. That was Ten Xiangshan Luo. Sword Emperor. Is he that powerful? Bai Yinzi asked with a frown. He had also paid attention to Zhou Xuanji, the new overlord of Northern Boundless. To him, Zhou Xuanji was too young. He might not even be able to protect his Sword Emperor Divine Court. How could he kill Ten Xiangshan Luo? Someone must have done it secretly. Not only him, but Zongji thought so too. Leave. Zongji waved his hand and said with an unsightly expression. Previously, he promised to take down Northern Boundless to see how weak Northern Boundless was. Now, his face was swollen. After the informant disappeared, Zongji fell into silence. Bai Yinzi got up and said with a mocking smile, "It seems like the royal family has not come out for a long time." After that, Bai Yinzi disappeared. Zongji poured himself a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. He took a deep breath and said faintly, "Sword Emperor, you can do it. No matter who is supporting you, I will take down Northern Boundless." In the Star Palace, Zhou Xuanji did not know that Zongji and Cardinal Heaven were shocked by his battle achievement. He was still recuperating. He decided to call the slash he used against Ten Xiangshan Luo Annihilation Judgment. Using Annihilation Judgment consumed a lot of his energy. He was considering how to reduce the consumption of this divine ability. If he could use Annihilation Judgment continuously, it would be perfect. At this moment, he sensed someone outside the palace. With a thought, that person appeared in the palace. Sovereign Hongqian. She took 2 steps forward and asked, "Did you really kill Ten Xiangshan Luo by yourself?" Zhou Xuanji looked up at her and asked, "Why?" "I'll lie." Could it be that everyone thought he was boasting? Countless living beings on the battlefield could see it clearly. "No, I just want to confirm something. When I received the inheritance in the Graveyard of Gods, I saw the 10-aspect deity Luo in the inherited memories of the Kunlun 5 permanents. The 10-aspect deity Luo doesn't refer to them. It is also a kind of inheritance. In other words, the 10-aspect deity Luo isn't just the 10 you killed." Autarch Crimson Dust said seriously, a hint of worry in her eyes. Zhou Xuanji understood her meaning. It was likely that the previous generation's 10 aspects divine Luo would come to find trouble with him. "Don't worry, this is unavoidable," Zhou Xuanji said as he shook his head. He did not panic. Once he was done creating the Annihilation Judgment, he wouldn't be afraid of any strong enemy. Seeing how calm he was, Crimson Dust understood that he was confident. "Let me give you a word of advice. I'm going to the front lines as well. I can't always enjoy your care," Autarch Crimson Dust said with a nod, then turned and left. Zhou Xuanji did not stop him. Mortal Sovereign was very independent. He had experienced war before. This was also good, at least it could make her feel at ease. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and began comprehending the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. Although the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra was not divided into realms, it gave Zhou Xuanji an unfathomable feeling. It was as if there were endless mysteries waiting for him to discover. Autarch Crimson Dust's words gave him a sudden idea. Inheritance. Would there be an inheritance in the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra? After all, this was a supreme energy technique or divine ability that was born before the endless universe. It was still uncertain whether the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra was created by the Fire God Lord. Maybe it had a longer history. It might even be related to the origin of all of this. And so, Zhou Xuanji began to revise the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra again and again. Within the chaotic domain of the universe, countless living beings stood in rows, preparing for battle. They held the Cardinal Heaven flag in their hands, and excitement was written all over their faces. With a legend leading them, they had no fear for the upcoming war but only anticipation and excitement. Behind the boundless army, the Cardinal Heaven stood proudly on the top of the tower, waiting for the arrival of the enemy. Suddenly, a massive black hole appeared in the chaotic space in front of them. Space-time lightning lingered at the edge of the black hole. Horrifying giant demons flew out of the black hole. They were in different shapes and had powerful auras. Behind them was an uncountable army of living beings. Ha ha ha. Cardinal Heaven. I wanted to challenge you for a long time. The person who defeated you today is called Ancient Juagio. I will surpass your post-ancient sovereign 3 heavens and become the next ancient sovereign. A wild and domineering voice came, impacting the hearts of all the Cardinal Heaven's subordinates. A powerful aura enveloped the chaotic universe. The war is here. The Cardinal Heaven laughed mockingly. Who do you think you are? You think you can stand shoulder to shoulder with Ancient Juagio just because your surname is Gu? Then I'm the Origin Lord. He immediately waved his hand, and the entire army charged forward with a roar. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes suddenly and frowned. This aura, he mumbled to himself. His eyes were filled with shock. He immediately thought of a name. Ancient Juagio. So powerful. Such an aura was even more powerful than that of the fire god. Even a Cardinal Heaven did not give off such a horrifying aura. He frowned and began to worry about the Cardinal Heaven. Could the current Cardinal Heaven really defeat Ancient Juagio? He did not want to be pincered by Ancient Juagio and Zongji. If that happened, he would die a horrible death. I need to hurry up and become more powerful. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes. Recently, he had vaguely grasped the inheritance in the Unconstitutional Creation Sutra. There seemed to be something hidden in the ancestral voice of the Unconstitutional Creation Sutra. He could grasp it occasionally, but it would slip away whenever he did. The more it was so, the more he wanted to understand it. 6 days later. Yuan Sheng appeared outside the Star Hall. Zhou Xuanji let him in. My lord, the Cardinal Heaven and Ancient Juagio are fighting. Yuan Sheng said worriedly. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, why? Is the situation not good? Yuan Sheng replied, Ancient Juagio was very powerful at the beginning and suppressed the Cardinal Heaven with ease. But when the Cardinal Heaven was about to be defeated, he went into his tower. Next, a powerful Cardinal Heaven that was not inferior to Ancient Juagio came out. The two fought to the point where they were both injured and had to stop. Zhou Xuanji relaxed his brows. Wasn't this a good thing? He was afraid that the Cardinal Heaven would be defeated. Such a powerful Cardinal Heaven must be plotting something for them to allow us to develop. Yuan Qing expressed his concern. He was worried that the Cardinal Heaven would target them in the future. Zhou Xuanji said calmly, let's talk about the future in the future. If we can defeat East Wujin, the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. As for the Cardinal Heaven, let me deal with him. Seeing that he was so confident, Yuan Sheng became excited immediately. Yuan Sheng continued, there's one more thing. I heard from the captive that Wu Yan was crippled by Zongji. No one knows if he's dead or alive. Chapter 1000. Crippled? Why? Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. Wasn't Wu Yan under Zongji? Yuan Sheng shook his head and said, I'm not sure. This news seems to have been released by Zongji on purpose. It's obvious that he's setting a trap for you. Perhaps Wu Yan has already betrayed you and his heart belongs to you. Of course, it's also possible that this is just one of Zongji's schemes and Wu Yan is still living very freely. He honestly told Zhou Xuanji about this, which made Zhou Xuanji feel quite satisfied. These two fellows had always been fighting openly and covertly, but this time, they didn't hit him while he was down. Instead, they purposely concealed the truth. As a subordinate strategist, they were very qualified. Let's put it aside for now. It's impossible for me to sneak into the Endless East to save him. Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. Now that Bei Wujin was in danger, if he went to save Wu Yan, he would be putting the Sword Emperor Divine Court in danger. Yuan Qing nodded. He also felt that this was the best decision. Wordless did not have much of a reputation in the East Boundless Realm, but now that a captive had mentioned that he was in danger, it was clearly a trap. Zhou Xuanji said, pay attention to the spacetime around the Divine Court. Not only do you have to guard against Eastern infinity, but also Western infinity. The boundless universe was too vast, and there were countless universes within it. The enemy might charge in from an inconspicuous corner. However, there was one thing that was certain. If the other party wanted to win, they would have to destroy the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Only when the Sword Emperor and the Cardinal Heaven experts were defeated would they be able to truly control the North. Yes. Yuan Cheng accepted the order and left. Zhou Xuanji hesitated before sending out another 500 doppelgangers. The avatars quickly disappeared and headed to every corner of the Sword Emperor Divine Court. He felt that there might be chaos within the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Then, he continued to comprehend the constitution-defying creation scripture. The Sword Emperor Divine Court and the Eastern Endless Theocrats were at war, and the Cardinal Heaven experts were fighting against the ancient geniuses. These two pieces of news became the most popular news in Northern Limitless. A voice soon rang out. Fight for the Endless North. Even though it was quite simple, it was quite powerful, attracting countless creatures to slaughter their way to the front lines. Even many old monsters who had been in seclusion for a long time appeared. In an instant, the Northern Limitless realm reached an unprecedented level of unity. In less than a month, another piece of shocking news had appeared. The news that the Cardinal Heavens had released the demonic emperor, Tang Xuanwu, and the other northern boundless overlords to participate in the battle caused a huge uproar. Because of their disappearance, the forces of these overlords were shattered. Now that they had made a comeback, the creatures that had already switched allegiance to them fell into a dilemma. Fortunately, they were at war, so they didn't have to make a decision immediately. Yuan Qing reported this to Zhou Xuanji. He was worried that the Sword Emperor Divine Court would lose power because of this. But Zhou Xuanji did not panic. He asked Yuan Qing to spread the news and guide the public's opinion. Now, the Sword Emperor Divine Court and the Cardinal Heavens had to take the lead and fight against the enemy together. At this time, if they still wanted to divide their forces, then Northern Wujin would definitely perish. Yuan Qing immediately ordered his intelligence force to spread these rumors in various fields. After hearing this, everyone felt that it made sense. North Endless was facing two sides. If they split up again, they would be defeated by the enemy one by one. The final result was the destruction of Northern Limitless. The turbulent situation calmed down again. The news reached the ears of the Cardinal Heaven experts. He couldn't help but sigh. This kid really knows how to use principles to set up a trap. After experiencing this war, could those living beings still be able to separate themselves from the others? The friendship of life and death was enough to solidify all living beings into an iron plate. He shook his head and looked at the pagoda in front of him. His pagoda was different from before. Its color was constantly changing. One moment, it was black, the next moment, it was golden, and the next moment, it was red. It was extremely strange. Don't worry, you'll be out soon. Cardinal Heaven stared at the pagoda and said softly. Boom! A loud sound came from the pagoda. It seemed like a terrifying beast was imprisoned in it. Cardinal Heaven's eyelids twitched. Seems like it's not enough. I need to refine it again. Then, he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked the pagoda into it. In a silver-white palace, the ground was like the surface of a lake. Gujuagio sat paralyzed on the crystal throne. His hair had turned white, and his face was very pale. He was panting slightly, giving off the feeling that he was seriously ill. At this moment, an old man appeared at the bottom of the stairs. The old man looked at him and held a giant horn with both hands. Master, the medicinal ingredient you wanted is here. Gujuagio reached out and sucked the horn into his hand. Then, the horn melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and turned into countless light spots that drilled into his body. Phew, he let out a long breath and calmed down instantly. He slowly sat up straight, and his eyes became cold. Cardinal Heaven. I didn't expect you to cultivate such a sinister magical power. It seems like you're really crazy. What sinister magical power? The old man asked doubtfully. It was the first time he had seen Gu Juejiao so severely injured. He wants to imitate Sovereign Gu. Gu Juejiao replied. As he said this, he gnashed his teeth, and his eyes were filled with hatred. The old man opened his eyes wide and looked terrified. Is he crazy? The old man cried out furiously and immediately panicked. Go find Hunyuan Heaven personally and tell him about this. As for what kind of magical power it is, Hunyuan Heaven knows, Gu Juejiao ordered. The old man nodded and left immediately. Gu Juejiao sat paralyzed on the crystal throne again. He looked up at the light above and muttered to himself, where did Cardinal Heaven learn it from? Could there be an even greater conspiracy behind this? Wait, why did Cardinal Heaven revive? Who revived him? And where did the legend of him revive come from? Ever since the war began, Zhou Xuanji had not been at peace. Every 10 days or half a month, he would personally summon Jin Sheng, Yuan Sheng, and the 12 divine lords to determine the situation of each battlefield. Most of the out-of-soul clones he sent out had already been destroyed. Zhou Xuanji rubbed his forehead and stretched his body. Recently, he had been studying the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra, which was extremely taxing on his mental energy. What was that sentence? Could it be some kind of incantation? Zhou Xuanji muttered to himself in confusion. He was thinking back to the sentence he had just comprehended. This was a passage formed from ancestral sound characters. When it was cut out and read, he felt a great fear and trepidation. This feeling was very abrupt because he felt very comfortable reciting the ancestral voice before. It was just that he would feel very tired afterward. He began to recite the sentence again and again. It was difficult to understand. Only those who knew the ancestral voice could remember it, but they could not understand what it meant. Even Zhou Xuanji, who had learned the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra, could not understand its meaning. As he recited it again and again, a spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of him. The crack began to grow larger. Zhou Xuanji felt a little scared, but he still persevered. He had to understand it, or else his heart would itch like a cat scratching it. The crack grew larger and larger, and strands of strange red chi seeped out from it. Roar, a low and horrifying roar came from it, which made Zhou Xuanji raise his brow. Could it be a sealing incantation? Chapter 1001. Zhou Xuanji was hesitant. The spatial crack in front of him was giving off an evil aura, and he was worried that it would bring disaster. But he could not be at ease if he did not check it out clearly. That ancestor could not have left a fatal move in the unconstitutional Creation Sutra to harm his descendants, right? He continued to chant the ancestral voice. The spatial crack grew larger and larger. Soon, a blood-red arm reached out from it. The muscles on the arm were bulging and looked horrifying like a ghost's claw. Zhou Xuanji saw a pair of cold eyes in the spatial crack. It was like an evil god peeping into the light from the abyss. Zhou Xuanji looked into his eyes, and the uneasiness in his heart disappeared. It was a marvelous feeling. Somehow, he was sure that the other party would not harm him. There was a trace of anticipation in his eyes, waiting for him to open the seal completely. Boom! The spatial crack opened up, and a blood-red figure jumped out. He landed on the ground with his limbs touching the ground like a lizard. He had a head of wild and lush blood-red hair. 2 giant pythons coiled around his upper body, one purple and one black. His pants seemed to be made of the black fur of some creature. It was thick and covered with tiny patterns. He had a tail behind him that looked like a dragon's tail, but it was forked at the end. A gust of hot wind swept up as he swung it. Zhou Xuanji stared at him in surprise. This guy's aura is so powerful. I feel that he is not inferior to the Cardinal Heaven cultivators he met before. The dragon-tailed creature looked up and revealed a hideous face. His face was covered with centipede-like scars. Greetings, Master. He stared at Zhou Xuanji and said with a deep voice. He got up slowly and half-knelt before Zhou Xuanji. Master? Zhou Xuanji understood immediately. What's your name? What's your relationship with that person? He asked with a smile. My name is Blood Dragon Ghost. I was subdued by dedicated Heart Sovereign. He once saved my clansman, and I swore to serve him forever. After he fell, I followed his will and merged into the unconstitutional Creation Sutra to assist the next master, the Blood Dragon Ghost replied seriously. The Blood Dragon Ghoul answered seriously. He began to size up the Hall of Stars and sniffed the air around him. Dedicated Heart Sovereign? The master of the uncontrollable fire god? Zhou Xuanji felt that the Blood Dragon Ghost did not lie to him because he could control its life and death. This feeling was marvelous. His instincts told him that if he recited the ancestral voice in reverse, the Blood Dragon Ghost would be destroyed in both form and spirit. Are there other existences like you in the Constitution-defying creation scripture? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. The Blood Dragon Ghoul was very strong. If there were a few more of them, wouldn't this battle be settled? However, he felt that it was unrealistic. The older one was, the stronger one would be. The Blood Dragon Ghost shook its head and said, I'm not sure, but I'm very strong under my master. There shouldn't be anyone stronger than me. He stood up slowly and looked at the door of the Myriad Stars Hall. He frowned and said, this aura, someone is cultivating the Tao of extermination. Path of annihilation? What was that? Zhou Xuanji was confused. Just when he was about to ask, the Blood Dragon Ghost disappeared suddenly. Master, I'll go check out the situation. Wait for me here. He was very fast. Before he even finished speaking, Zhou Xuanji could no longer sense his aura. Zhou Xuanji could not help but frown. Would that guy hurt innocent people? He couldn't track the Blood Dragon Ghost right now, so he could only wait patiently. One day later, the Blood Dragon Ghost returned and landed on the ground. His left arm was drenched in blood, and his expression was extremely ugly. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and asked, what happened to you? He was a little frustrated. He had high expectations for the Blood Dragon Ghost and was waiting for it to help him slaughter his enemies. He did not expect it to end up like this on the second day after it came out. What a slap in the face. I found that guy. He was indeed cultivating the Tao of annihilation. This guy is playing with fire. The Blood Dragon Ghost said with a deep voice. He waved his right hand, and the face of a Cardinal Heaven cultivator appeared before him. What's the Tao of annihilation? Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. He was thinking about something else. The Blood Dragon Ghost could not even defeat a Cardinal Heaven cultivator. How could it fight against Zongji and the ancient geniuses? One must know that the Cardinal Heaven cultivator had not reached his pinnacle. That's the cultivation path created by the primogenitor. It will destroy everything, including fate. The Blood Dragon Ghost said with a deep voice. His eyes were filled with hatred. Zhou Xuanji was still confused. How could a Cardinal Heaven cultivator die with such a Tao technique? I took a look when I went out. There are traces of the Tao of annihilation in the current spacetime. Someone must have used the Tao of annihilation at some point in time. The current spacetime is much weaker than the one I had back then. The Blood Dragon Ghost continued as it sat on the ground and began to recuperate. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. What did this mean? What's the point of using the path of extermination? Become stronger? Zhou Xuanji asked. The Blood Dragon Ghost replied, destroy everything, eliminate everything, and create our own era. The era of the Prime Venerables. Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of this. Cardinal Heaven had always been an ancient sovereign, so it was indeed possible for him to learn the Tao of extermination. You're talking about the primeval age, but not all ancient existences were destroyed after the primeval age. Why is that? Zhou Xuanji said hesitantly. If ancient sovereign really did what the Blood Dragon Ghost said, there would not be the legend of the Kunlun origin court. The Blood Dragon Ghost opened its eyes and replied, maybe he didn't want to dominate the universe. He had no choice but to exterminate the universe. That's why he didn't kill everyone. Zhou Xuanji came to a sudden realization, but new doubts appeared. What had Gu Zun encountered that forced him to use the Tao of annihilation? At the same time, he was in awe of the progenitor's unfathomable profundity. What kind of existence was the primogenitor master? It felt like he was omnipotent. How could such a powerful being fall? Who could kill him? Or was he like Pangu in Chinese mythology, sacrificing himself to create a new world? Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. The blood dragon ghost asked as it recovered, "Master, what's your relationship with that guy? If he's an enemy, you can take this opportunity to kill him." Zhou Xuanji was stunned. What? A cardinal heaven heavily injured? His expression changed drastically. Seeing this, the blood dragon ghost could not help but feel uneasy. Could he be your good friend? The blood dragon ghost asked carefully. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and told it about Bei Wujin's predicament. The blood dragon ghost was embarrassed. It did not expect to injure its new master's ally the moment it came out. Ahem, it's okay. Leave the ancient genius to me. The blood dragon ghost smiled and tried to hide its embarrassment. Zhou Xuanji stared at it and said unpleasantly, "Aren't you injured too?" The blood dragon ghost replied proudly, "My greatest ability is my recovery ability. No Daoist technique can cause permanent damage to me if it lands on me." Zhou Xuanji thought about it and could only nod. He tried to chant the ancestral voice incantation to summon the blood dragon ghost. Next, a spatial crack appeared behind the blood dragon ghost and sucked it in forcefully. Chapter 1002. Zhou Xuanji was overjoyed to see that he could keep the blood dragon ghost. Then, he released the blood dragon ghost. The blood dragon ghost looked at him with resentment, but it didn't say anything. Mastering the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra would allow him to completely control the blood dragon ghost. Naturally, the blood dragon ghost wouldn't dare to have any objections. Based on what you said, you have a good relationship with the hidden heart revered. How could he bear to let you be like this? Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion. The blood dragon ghost seemed to be cursed by an enemy. The blood dragon replied, "It's incredible to be able to learn the Constitution-Defiance Creation Sutra. It's impossible for people without a heart of justice to learn it. The hidden heart deity once told me that the next master is absolutely trustworthy and won't mistreat me." Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. Could divining sovereign calculate to this extent? He suddenly thought of the fated fate pearl. Could it be that the fated fate pearl would consider a person's heart during the process of recognizing its master? If he was cruel and heartless, he would be rejected by the fated pearl? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. He began to admire the dedicated heart sovereign. Was the Constitution-defying creation scripture created by sovereign Qian Exan? Zhou Xuanji continued to ask. He was very interested in secrets that were even older than Gu Zun. The blood dragon ghost said everything it knew. "I'm not sure. Hidden Heart Sovereign seems to be related to the founder. I even suspect that he's not dead because I didn't see him fall with my own eyes. However, he left behind a will saying that he passed away." Speaking of this matter, a look of regret appeared on his face. What kind of person was Sovereign Dianxin? What was his cultivation like? Did he surpass the imperishable realm? Zhou Xuanji asked non-stop. He is a very strange person. Sometimes, he is kind and benevolent, and he can't bear to see any living being suffer. Sometimes, he is very evil and likes to scheme against people. Moreover, he doesn't kill people. Instead, he makes them suffer a fate worse than death. The blood dragon ghost sank into its memories. Its eyes alternated between nostalgia and fear. As for his cultivation, no one knows. In any case, I have never seen him lose. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji felt that Hidden Heart Sovereign was even more mysterious. If the devoted Mind Lord is still alive, where is he? And the progenitor? Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. Could it be that the unknown regions of the boundless universe hid those ancient powerhouses? Why didn't they show themselves? For a time, the Hall of Stars was silent. The blood dragon ghost did not disturb Zhou Xuanji because he needed to rest. The battle in the north was still going on. After Gujuagio was injured, he settled down. Cardinal Heaven experts also began to recuperate after being attacked by the blood dragon ghost. The creatures under the two of them were fighting non-stop, and the flames of war spread across dozens of domains. Compared to them, the Sword Emperor Divine Court and the Eastern Boundless Imperials were engaged in a fierce battle. All sorts of battle reports spread through the Sword Emperor Divine Court. More and more heroic figures were born, becoming famous after a single battle. More and more creatures rushed to the battlefield. The reason why the news of the battle had spread so quickly was because of Yuanqing's intentional arrangements. The idea naturally came from Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji was not afraid of other geniuses rising up to shake his position, because he was confident. In the boundless universe, fame and fortune were equally important. Zhou Xuanji gave them a chance to become famous. As for the benefits, killing enemies could be exchanged for resources. Under such rules, the Sword Emperor Divine Court grew stronger as they fought. Wherever the situation on the battlefield was bad, more living beings would head there. To them, the stronger the enemy, the easier it was for them to become famous. Zhou Xuanji did not fight personally again, unless he encountered a powerful imperishable stage cultivator. Ordinary imperishable realm experts could be handed over to Hongqin Saint Monarch or other god monarchs. The gap in the battlefield could not be widened, and the Eastern Boundless Imperials could not invade the Northern Boundless Imperials. Eastern Boundless Imperials belonged to the expedition, and Zhong Ji could not allow this situation to continue. He sent someone even more powerful than 10-aspect deity Luo. Emperor Luo. This person was like an Azura in the Eastern Boundless Imperials. He had killed countless living beings until he was subdued by Zhong Ji. Zhong Ji sent him to bring disaster to the Northern Boundless Imperials. Once he entered the battlefield, he started killing immediately. He even killed Eastern Boundless living beings without any fear. The news spread to the Star Hall. My lord, that Emperor Luo is ridiculously powerful. The evil emperor of the Northern Boundless Imperials was defeated by him 100 million years ago. What should we do? Yuanqing said in panic. He was like an ant on a hot pan, extremely anxious. What made him panic the most was that Zhou Xuanji was still smiling and did not fear Emperor Luo at all. My lord. The enemy this time is completely different from the 10-aspect deity Luo. Yuanqing continued to say. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, what are you panicking for? Without a powerful enemy, how can we strengthen the cohesion of the Sword Emperor Divine Court? Continuous victories would only make people slack off. The pressure of adversity could instead unite people. Yuanqing said helplessly, now is not the time to unite. The enemy is really powerful. Even 10 Rainbow Qin Saint Lords are not his match. Why could he not make sense of it? He suddenly felt that Zhou Xuanji had become arrogant. It was not a good thing to face Emperor Luo with such a mentality. Zhou Xuanji suddenly chanted the ancestral voice, and Yuanqing was stunned. A spatial crack appeared out of nowhere. Next, the blood dragon ghost stepped out from it. A horrifying murderous aura filled the entire Star Hall. Yuanqing looked at the blood dragon ghost in a daze. Although he did not recognize the blood dragon ghost, the blood dragon ghost's aura was too powerful, which made him shudder. Even Emperor Luo could not instill such fear in him. My lord, he is, Yuanqing asked with a trembling voice. He did not even dare to look into the blood dragon ghost's eyes. Zhou Xuanji instructed, he's called the blood dragon ghost. He's my general. Bring him to Emperor Luo. Just when Yuanqing wanted to ask more, the blood dragon ghost moved before him. The blood dragon ghost grabbed him and disappeared. Zhou Xuanji smiled and closed his eyes. Half a day later, the blood dragon ghost and Yuanqing returned to the Star Hall. Yuanqing was still in a daze. The blood dragon ghost walked up to Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile, it's done. I was wondering how powerful he would be. He's still far from the cardinal heaven you mentioned. After that, he walked to the side and began to meditate. Too powerful. He's really too powerful. Yuan Sheng mumbled to himself. He suddenly became excited. Sir! He cried out to the blood dragon ghost. You must be a legendary being. What's your real name? Recalling the battle just now, he felt like he was dreaming. The blood dragon ghost ignored him. Yuan Sheng looked at Zhou Xuanji and said in amazement, this sir can also use Godly Days mode. Emperor Lu could not even withstand a single palm strike from him. If not for his playfulness, we would have returned long ago. Godly Days mode? Zhou Xuanji glanced at the blood dragon ghost, who chuckled but still did not speak. Okay, you can leave now. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and said. He suddenly wanted to learn from the blood dragon ghost. Yuan Sheng held back his excitement and asked, My lord, do you want to create a legend about him? With such a powerful cultivator, the Sword Emperor Divine Court's morale would be greatly boosted. It would also attract more creatures to join them. Zhou Xuanji nodded. The blood dragon ghost had already made its move anyway, so it could not be hidden anymore. Yuan Sheng heard him and immediately left in excitement. He had already thought of many ways to create an image of the blood dragon ghost as an invincible cultivator. Chapter 1003. The news of the ghostly blood dragon killing the Fire Emperor quickly spread throughout the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Then, it spread to the entire North Boundless and East Boundless. Emperor Lu was a super powerful being that had been famous for a long time. To think that he would be instantly killed by a mysterious being. Soon, the news about the blood dragon spread. Sword Emperor's battle general, blood dragon ghost. There were only these two messages. It was enough to raise the spirits of everyone in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. With such a super expert overseeing things, what was there for them to be afraid of? How many experts does the Sword Emperor have? Our North Limitless is not weak to begin with. Now that we have a virtuous lord, there will naturally be almighty beings appearing. Ha ha ha, Dong Wujin must be dumbfounded. First, it was 10-aspect Divine Luo, and now it's Emperor Lu. Is Zhongji going to act personally next? The Sword Emperor is truly amazing. He has endless trump cards. Right now, I want to know what those dogs of East Wujin are feeling. All the domains were discussing this matter. The shocking feat of the ghostly blood dragon had also attracted more creatures to the battlefield. The Sword Emperor Divine Court grew stronger as the battle progressed, and the morale of the Eastern Boundless royal family started to drop. Not long after, the Eastern Endless royal family began to retreat. The Sword Emperor Divine Court could be considered to have obtained victory in the first wave of the war, and everyone rejoiced. The news reached the ears of the Cardinal Heaven experts. He sat in his bedroom, gnashing his teeth. So that guy is Zhou Xuanji's man. The anger of a Cardinal Heaven expert could not be appeased at the thought of the blood dragon ghost attacking him. But on second thought, he was curious why the blood dragon ghost would help Zhou Xuanji. That fellow had recognized that he cultivated the Tao of extermination at a glance. This was a secret that even Hong Meng Heaven did not know. Could it be that Zhou Xuanji had an unimaginable backer? An almighty being from before the primeval era, the heart of a Cardinal Heaven expert sank. He was a little flustered. He had always been in awe of the existences before the primeval sovereigns. The more you know, the more you are afraid of. That shouldn't be possible. After Prime Sovereign, those undying existences won't come out again. The eyes of a Cardinal Heaven expert flickered as he tried to comfort himself. He waved his right hand, and a figure flew out of the pagoda in front of him. It looked exactly like him. Let's take a look at the Sword Emperor Divine Court and see if there are any strange auras there. That Cardinal Heaven expert immediately disappeared from his spot after giving the order. Ever since he summoned the blood dragon ghost, Zhou Xuanji did not stop studying the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. He felt that the Constitution-defying creation scripture was an endless treasure. In addition to summoning the blood dragon, there must be a stronger method. Usually, he would put the blood dragon into the unique space of the scripture of defiance of the Constitution. Although he could control the life and death of the blood dragon ghost, this guy's temperament was abnormal. He could tell at a glance that it was evil. If it went out and did anything wrong, it would be torture for him. He wanted to nip the potential tragedy in the bud. As the war began, some creatures from the Kunlun Origin Court, Jinsu Court Realm, and Zhanlan Court Realm were released to roam the Sword Emperor Divine Court. Zhou Xuanji paid special attention to these creatures, especially those from the Kunlun Origin Court. After all, he came from the Kunlun Origin Court. He didn't want the living beings of the Kunlun Origin Court to drown in the vast endless universe as soon as they came out. Even though the Sword Emperor Divine Court already had order, there was still darkness everywhere. It was worth mentioning that Zhou Shaoxian and Zhou Tanhua's sects were already on the right track. Naturally, Zhou Shaoxian was the one with the fastest growth. She already had more than 10,000 disciples. Zhou Tanhua only accepted a few people, and his requirements were extremely strict. Zhou Xuanji had no objections to this. Both options had their pros and cons. As long as they could carry out their ideas, it would be a good thing. Zhou Xuanji did not want them to have no goals in life under his protection forever. This was especially true for Zhou Shaoxian. At the very least, Zhou Tanhua's goal was to cultivate bitterly. Under the red clouds, on the floating island. Zhongji's expression was extremely ugly. The spy kneeling beside him was shivering, not daring to raise his head. The atmosphere was terribly oppressive. Zhou Xuanji. Zhongji gnashed his teeth, his eyes filled with rage. Before, he had treated Zhou Xuanji as a chess piece, so he had sent Wu Yan to help Zhou Xuanji. But he did not expect Zhou Xuanji to be able to stand against him in such a short time. It could even be said that they were suppressing him. At least in the battle, he did not gain any advantage at all. Instead, he increased Zhou Xuanji's fame. Right now, the name of the Northern Limitless Sword Emperor wasn't just limited to Northern Limitless. Even the other three Limitless sects were discussing it. Northern Limitless, who was fighting amongst themselves, actually held the upper hand against Eastern Limitless and Western Limitless pressure. A Cardinal Heaven expert was already a legend. But what about Zhou Xuanji? Kunlun Origin Court Supreme? The Kunlun Origin Court had long lost its legendary status. Go down. Zhongji said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the spy immediately disappeared. Bang! Zhongji slammed the table, instantly shattering it. He was furious. He really wanted to kill his way into the battlefield himself. But if he did this, wouldn't it be telling the endless universe that the royal family had no one and that he could only do it himself? He was furious and aggrieved. No, I must restrain his arrogance. Zhongji said, gnashing his teeth. He suddenly thought of someone and immediately disappeared. On the star stairs of the star's domain, Zhou Xuanji strolled forward. As he walked, he looked down at the star spectator domain. Shen Nianxing followed behind him. Tell me, what opportunity did you get? What's the origin of that blood dragon ghost? Shen Nianxing pestered him and kept asking questions. She had been active on the battlefield. After learning of the existence of the blood dragon ghost, she immediately ran back. Zhou Xuanji said helplessly, I already said that it's a trump card. Can I say more? When did this girl become so thick-skinned? I'm worried about you. How powerful is Emperor Lo? Even I'm not sure if I can kill him. But your subordinate killed him in an instant. I'm worried that you will be used by him, Shen Nianxing said seriously. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, Don't worry, he has been sealed by me. I have the means to control him. Shen Nianxing couldn't help but fall into deep thought after hearing this. What kind of ability can control such an expert? She looked deeply at Zhou Xuanji. She suddenly felt that she couldn't see through him. When did this kid become so unfathomable? If there's nothing else, I advise you to leave. I won't say anything. If you want to deal with me one day, wouldn't I be digging my own grave if I said anything? Zhou Xuanji snorted. It was rare for him to come out for a walk. He didn't want his mood to be ruined by her. Shen Nianxing stepped forward and walked side by side with him. She said with a strange smile, shall we make a big wave? Zhou Xuanji glanced at her and asked, what do you mean? You killed Emperor Lu. Zhongji will definitely fly into a rage. Next, he will definitely think of other ways to deal with you. It's better for us to directly attack the royal family and catch them off guard. Shen Yanqing said with a smile. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. Zhongji certainly didn't expect that they would attack the royal family at this critical juncture. Zhou Xuanji hesitated and asked, then who will be in charge of the Sword Emperor Divine Court? Shen Yanqing said with a smile, don't you also have an outer soul doppelganger? Can't you just pretend to be your main body? Chapter 1004. Zhou Xuanji carefully considered Shen Yanqing's proposal. He felt that it was feasible. At this juncture, the Sword Emperor Divine Court's momentum was at its peak. The ones who were anxious should be the Eastern boundless royalty. From another person's point of view, there was no need for him to take the risk. Because of this, he was able to catch them off guard. He thought for a moment, then nodded and said, all right, go back and prepare first. Wait for my notice. When Shen Yanqing heard this, a smile blossomed on her face, and then she disappeared. Zhou Xuanji continued to advance, and at the same time, he removed the space-time restrictions around him. Even if there was no one around, he had to be careful so that no one could hear his plan with Shen Yanqing. He spread out his divine sense and observed the situation of the various realms within the multitude star domain. The current domain of stars was many times stronger than before he took over. There were too many living beings coming and going, and it had already surpassed the cultivation gathering places like the Thunder League and the Yen League. Cardinal Heaven experts were resurrected in the Myriad Domain Demon Lair, and the surrounding worlds were destroyed, including the Thunder Alliance. Zhou Xuanji looked at the lives of the creatures as he walked about. When he reached the end, he retracted his divine sense. This flight of stairs isn't long enough. Zhou Xuanji sighed in amazement before disappearing from the top of the starry sky stairs. 2 days later, he and Shen Yanqing quietly left. He had left an extra soul doppelganger in the Hall of Stars. For the sake of authenticity, he had poured the same level of divine energy as his main body into the doppelganger. In the divine state, Shen Yanqing sighed, your use of this kind of magical power is getting stronger and stronger, but in terms of speed, I'm not as good as you. She looked at Zhou Xuanji closely. Although Zhou Xuanji rarely participated in battles and did not go out, she felt that he was becoming more and more powerful. His unfathomable demeanor really made her curious. It's all right. Compared to true experts, I'm still far from it. Compared to those before the ancient sovereign, I'm not even worth mentioning, Zhou Xuanji said as he shook his head and smiled. Shen Yanqing narrowed her eyes. Was this kid pretending, or had he really seen the people before the primeval era? Zhou Xuanji could now sense everything outside the space-time kaleidoscope. This way, he could perfectly control the direction he was heading. When they arrived at the lawless area, Shen Yanqing began to lead the way. Zhou Xuanji was very curious about what she had done in the past. This time, she did not hide anything and talked about her glorious days as she led the way. Before Shen Yanqing, there was another Hong Meng Tian. Together with Cardinal Heaven and Hunyuan Heaven, Hong Meng Heaven had left behind the legend of the three heavens. When she was born, the Cardinal Heaven experts had already fallen. It was a mysterious chaotic era, and there were very few historical legends left behind. The people who survived from that era all became the current overlords. Among them were Gu Juejiao, Ancestral Buddha, Zhongji, Evil Emperor, etc. Shen Yanqing was formed by the heavenly Tao of a universe. After awakening her identity as Hong Meng Heaven, she began to rise. She challenged the strong along the way, and her prestige dominated the world. It was worth mentioning that Shen Yanqing had the title of Lesser Supreme Heaven back then. When it came to this matter, Shen Yanqing couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. How did you feel when you met a true Cardinal Heaven expert? Zhou Xuanji asked teasingly. In his heart, he was thinking about the history of the boundless universe. What he was most curious about was why Gu Zun had used the Tao of Annihilation. Did he encounter something at that time, or did he go berserk? The two of them chatted at a very fast pace. Under the leadership of Shen Nianxing, they did not encounter any danger and easily sneaked into the eastern endless sea. The space barrier of the lawless region was like an empty shell to the godless state. After entering the eastern endless sea, Zhou Xuanji felt that the divine energy in his body was a little chaotic. The reason was that the spiritual qi of the eastern endless sea was different from that of the northern endless sea. This difference had nothing to do with strength or weakness. It was just an essential difference, just like humans and demons. The eastern endless sea is very big. It has always been ruled by the royal family, and the base of the royal family has never changed. I have been there before and I still remember the way. Even if I die, I will not forget it, Shen Nianxing said with a smile. Her smile was so cold. She was still brooding over the hatred of the past. Zhou Xuanji raised his right hand and wiped his face. Immediately, his face changed into another face. Shen Nianxing raised her brow and asked with a smile, "Are you afraid of being recognized?" "Of course not, I just want to create a misunderstanding," Zhou Xuanji said with a mysterious smile. He wanted Zhong Ji to think that there were other experts hiding in the Sword Emperor Divine Court. This time, he wanted to completely display the instincts he had comprehended. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji had the opportunity to observe the Eastern Endless Court. There were too many similarities between the two endless worlds. If it weren't for the spiritual qi, Zhou Xuanji would have thought that he was still in the Northern Endless Sea. After a long while, the two finally arrived near the Eastern Endless Royal Clan. Zhou Xuanji looked up. The end of the universe was filled with extremely strong sunlight. It was like a huge sun that had expanded countless times. Countless red clouds overflowed from it. At the same time, many creatures flew into it. Before stepping into the Eastern Endless Royal Clan, Zhou Xuanji had already felt the power of the royal family. The vast aura gathered together like a holy land in the endless universe. People couldn't help but want to worship it. "See if you can use Godly Void State to jump in directly," Shen Nianxing asked expectantly. Godly Void State could pass through everything. If she could take them directly into the royal family, it would save a lot of trouble. Zhou Xuanji immediately took her into Godly Void State. He tried to break through the royal family's world restriction. There was a loud bang. The space-time kaleidoscope shattered. Zhou Xuanji and Shen Nianxing fell into a red cloud sky. They quickly stabilized their bodies and looked around. "Sure enough, we came in. Next, we will act separately. You can do whatever you want," Shen Nianxing said excitedly. After that, she disappeared. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. He then concealed his aura and went to look for Wuyan. If Wuyan was really punished by Zhong Ji because of him, then he had to save Wuyan. Although Wuyan's background made him conflicted, Wuyan had never harmed him until now. Not long after he took action, dang, the sound of an ancient bell rang out, followed by a series of explosions. The floating islands in the distance exploded one after another. Vaguely, Shen Nianxing's wild laughter could be heard. "This guy," Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile. He was still wondering why Shen Nianxing wanted to act separately. He didn't expect her to go straight to the destruction. He used Godly Void speed and quickly moved through the royal family's world. Shen Nianxing swept in all directions. On the other side, Shen Nianxing was surrounded by hundreds of immortal experts. These experts were all furious. They didn't ask anything and directly started fighting. Shen Nianxing raised her arms as strands of red qi coiled around her body, forming a huge tornado that blocked all the divine ability attacks. "It's you." Zhong Ji's cold voice came. He descended from the clouds. His face was as cold as frost and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He recognized Shen Nianxing at a glance. She was the devil who had bullied the royal family. Shen Nianxing hated them, and so did Zhong Ji. In order to destroy Shen Nianxing, the royal family had paid a heavy price. Zhong Ji's mother had died in that battle. Chapter 1005. You've come at the right time. Your father is dead, so you'll pay for him. Shen Nianqing stared at Zong Ji and said in a cold voice with a sneer on her face. Zong Ji looked down at her and laughed mockingly. For so many years, you have been hiding, being a disciple of so many people, working so hard just for revenge? Do you deserve it? What right do you have to fight against us now? Shen Nianqing raised her arms. In the red tornado, her face became wild and ferocious. Kid, what do you know? Your royal family won't be able to see me reach the peak. As soon as she finished speaking, a bright red light burst forth from her body. A series of terrifying roars came from her body. Zong Ji's expression changed as he yelled, "Get into formation. Kill her." Boom. Hundreds of immortal powerhouses lined up in a formation. Their divine power gathered together to form a huge golden will above Shen Nianqing's head. Almost instantly, a terrifying golden beam of light descended from the sky, covering Shen Nianqing. Boundless pressure spread and shook the imperial family world. Space twisted, and countless red clouds circled around, forming ring-shaped air currents. Zhou Xuanji, who was searching silently, looked back. Sensing the power of the formation, he could not help but frown. Could she bear it? He hesitated for a moment before summoning the blood dragon. An evil aura spread out, and the blood dragon ghost stepped out of the spatial crack. Master, which pitiful worm needs me to kill this time? The blood dragon ghost grinned hideously as it involuntarily glanced at the battle in the distance. He immediately understood. Zhou Xuanji ordered, other than that woman, kill everyone else. The blood dragon ghost smiled and immediately disappeared. Zhou Xuanji continued to search for Wuyan. The royal family's world was very big, and it was so big that Zhou Xuanji could not search every corner in a short period of time. Soon, he heard the laughter coming from behind him. It was even wilder than Shen Nianqing's. The blood dragon ghost had already begun its massacre. Who the hell are you? Zong Ji's roar echoed throughout the imperial world. The blood dragon ghoul laughed sinisterly. You're the blood dragon ghoul ancestor. Zhou Xuanji wanted to laugh. At this moment, he suddenly sensed wordless aura. It was very weak. The aura came from a giant upside-down island below. The island was entangled by thousands of large chains, and there were many iron doors on the rocky walls. There were guards behind each iron door. Zhou Xuanji charged in forcefully with the sword fusion technique. There was a loud bang. One side of the massive island exploded, and Zhou Xuanji dived in like a ghost. The guards along the way could not stop him at all. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Speechless Cell. He frowned, a hint of anger flashing in his eyes. Wordless was chained to the wall. His arms and legs were gone, and his head was drooping. His body was covered in bloody holes, and there were golden worms crawling in each of the holes. Zhou Xuanji could sense that Wuyan's real body was not fake. He asked softly, "Why is it like this?" Hearing this, she raised her head silently, her eyes as clear as before. "It's nothing. I just chose to follow my heart," Speechless replied. Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown, "You chose me, why does Zong Ji treat you like this? Since you came here, you must have become stronger." Bang! The iron door collapsed, and Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand. His divine energy destroyed the insects on Wuyan's body and broke the iron chains. "You can't take him away." A hoarse voice came from behind Zhou Xuanji. He turned and saw an old prisoner sitting in the cell behind him. His hair was disheveled, and his clothes were ragged. His body was quite thin, and his aura was almost non-existent. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "What, you don't want to escape?" The old prisoner slowly raised his head, revealing a face that looked like old tree bark. He said calmly, "I came here voluntarily, why should I escape? Didn't you notice that the guards here are very weak?" Zhou Xuanji smiled. He understood what this fellow meant. So this old prisoner was the expert guarding this island. Even though he could not sense the old prisoner's aura, the old prisoner gave him a very dangerous feeling. He's an ancestor of the royal clan, a god born from the primeval sovereign era. Please don't act against him, wordless voice came, sounding incredibly weak. Zhou Xuanji gave a smile that did not seem like a smile and said, if I want to take you away, who can stop me? Wordless fell silent. The old prisoner looked at him and said, Junior, don't be too conceited. Even though I haven't gone out for a long time, no one in the boundless universe is a match for me. So powerful? Zhou Xuanji did not panic, and his body gradually gave off a silver light. He was already prepared to fight. Junior, are you sure you want to act? The old prisoner said coldly. He slowly stood up, and an awe-inspiring aura exploded out. Zhou Xuanji teased, can't you sense everything outside? The old prisoner replied, the royal clan is more powerful than you think. Even if the previous Hongmeng heaven came, he would not be able to escape death. She didn't tell you how she died back then, right? Zhou Xuanji raised his right hand, and sword qi condensed into a sword of light in his hand. Back then, she was high-spirited and thought that she was invincible in the boundless universe. In the end, facing the powerful beings of the royal clan, she was utterly defeated and could not fight back at all. In the end, she killed herself here, her body and soul destroyed. The old prisoner continued to speak. Zhou Xuanji was indifferent, his soul was already chanting the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. 2 faded fate pearls replaced his eyes, and his aura suddenly changed. This is, the old prisoner's eyes widened, looking dumbfounded. Wu Yan was also stunned. Zhou Xuanji gripped annihilation judgment, his killing intent rising. He stared at the old prisoner and harumphed, since you want to stop me, then let me see the power of the ancient sovereign. Rumble, the massive island trembled as if it would collapse at any moment. The old prisoner deeply breathed in and asked in a low voice, just who are you? Zhou Xuanji did not say anything and slashed out. At the same time, he used universal attraction and pulled Wu Yan behind him. The massive island exploded, and a berserk shockwave swept across the entire royal clan's world. Zhou Xuanji quickly flew out with Wu Yan. He looked back and saw the old prisoner, covered in blood, flying out as well. The old prisoner was not angry and instead looked at him in surprise and cried out, the power of the primordial lord. You're the primordial lord's descendant? Primordial lord. Wu Yan's expression greatly fell, and he looked at Zhou Xuanji in shock. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, what do you mean? Your aura is exactly the same as the primordial lord's, you're the primordial lord's descendant. The old prisoner said with a trembling voice, so excited that his entire body trembled. Zhou Xuanji said coldly, so what if I am? The old prisoner deeply breathed in and replied, I'll bring you out of here. He came to Zhou Xuanji's side in an instant. Such speed. Zhou Xuanji's pupils dilated, and he instinctively wanted to resist, but it was too late. The old prisoner grabbed him and Wu Yan and jumped out of the royal clan's world. Zhou Xuanji was dazed and found that he had come to avoid absolute time. Massive waves crashed in his heart. Could this old thing also have the exalted invasion sovereign physique? Chapter 1006. The old prisoner looked at Zhou Xuanji and deeply breathed in. Wu Yan quickly grew 4 limbs and blocked in front of Zhou Xuanji. He stared at the old prisoner and said, Senior, don't kill him. Those insects were his seal. After Zhou Xuanji got rid of them, he regained his ability to recover. Little bastard, get lost. I won't kill him. The old prisoner said unhappily. With a wave of his right hand, speechless uncontrollably moved to the side, making way for him. Zhou Xuanji could tell that this guy no longer intended to kill him. It seemed like his identity as a descendant of the founding lord had an effect. Could it be that the bloodline of the founding master was cultivating the Constitution-defying creation scripture? The hidden heart supremacy was a descendant of the founding lord? Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that there are still descendants of the founding master? The current endless world is a joke, it has gone against the founder master's will. What is your goal? the old prisoner asked as he looked at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji replied without hesitation, unify the endless universe. And then? To challenge a higher realm. After unifying the world, how will you manage the four directions? By the law, supreme beings and mortals share the same responsibility. The old prisoner frowned. He no longer said anything, entering a state of contemplation. Zhou Xuanji did not disturb him. He turned to look at Wu Yan and asked, how are you? Speechless nodded, I'm recovering. He hesitated for a moment before asking, can I still serve you in the future? Zhou Xuanji laughed. He looked at Zhou Xuanji meaningfully and was speechless. Why did you choose me? Why did you betray the royal family and suffer so much torture? Zhou Xuanji asked. Speechless answered without hesitation, you have a brighter future. Compared to the other overlords, you are more benevolent and righteous. You are the only overlord who cares about the suffering of the people at the bottom. Hearing this, the old prisoner looked up at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed, are you bootlicking? He felt that Speechless was exaggerating. There were definitely people who were more benevolent than him, it was just that they were not strong enough. In the boundless universe, the law of the jungle was the eternal and unchanging rule. No, it's not that hard to find a benevolent heart. What's rare is that a genius with outstanding talent and a strong providence can be benevolent, Wu Yan said seriously. He paused for a moment and continued. The boundless East royal family has existed for countless years, but they've never unified the boundless universe, and even the boundless East royal family occasionally has internal strife. East Infinity can even be said to be the courtyard of the royal family. Members of the royal family can do whatever they want, but in the multitude-star domain, no matter how high one's position is, as long as one dares to violate the rules, they will be punished. Hearing him speak so extravagantly, Zhou Xuanji could not help but doubt himself. Am I really that good? Zhou Xuanji had risen up from the bottom. Perhaps it was because he had not lived long enough, but he would always consider the lives of those at the bottom. Sometimes, Yuan Sheng even felt that he was too benevolent and righteous. He felt that he should be strict with those at the bottom and not give them too much freedom. Only then would the Sword Emperor Divine Court be orderly and strong, especially during times of war. Junior, I'll bring you to a place. The old prisoner said, causing Zhou Xuanji and the others to look at him speechlessly. He could see the alertness in the two's eyes and said helplessly, if I wanted to kill you, why would I beat around the bush? Zhou Xuanji nodded. Just when he was about to speak, the old prisoner grabbed his shoulder. Next, the world spun around him again. This time, the dizziness lasted for a long time. Zhou Xuanji was confused. What divine ability was the old prisoner using? It felt even more profound than godly blankness. A long while later, the dizziness finally disappeared, and Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. There was a massive door in front of him. Above him was a boundless blue sky, and below him was a sea of clouds. Looking up, they could not see anything other than the massive door in front of them. This is the forbidden ground of the royal family? Wu Yan cried out in shock. He took 2 steps forward with excitement on his face. Zhou Xuanji could not help but size up the massive door. The massive door was silver in color and was carved with many patterns of white rocks, as though it was recording a story. There was nothing behind the door. It just stood there alone, desolate and boundless. Zhou Xuanji looked at it for a long time but could not sense anything wrong. Although the door contained restrictive mechanisms, it was not connected to other worlds, and it did not contain any powerful energy. Put your hand on it. The old prisoner stood beside Zhou Xuanji and said softly. Zhou Xuanji did not hesitate. He walked up to the massive door and placed his hand on the stone surface. Wu Yan stopped and looked at him. However, nothing happened. The old prisoner frowned and reminded him, your aura is not right. Where's the aura of the primogenitor lord's descendant? Zhou Xuanji heard him and immediately chanted the constitution-defying creation sutra with his soul. His aura changed as well. The massive door began to tremble violently, and the patterns of white rocks on the door began to move. Zhou Xuanji could clearly sense some kind of energy surging toward the massive door from all directions. Interesting. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow in anticipation. What was hidden behind the door? Could it be related to the primogenitor lord? Many silver starlight flowed out of the door and gathered at the top of the door, forming a massive silhouette. Zhou Xuanji looked up but could not see the silhouette's face clearly. The primogenitor lord has shown himself, the old prisoner said excitedly and knelt down shakily. Wu Yan was shocked too. He looked at the primogenitor lord's spirit and did not know what to say. Primogenitor lord? Zhou Xuanji frowned. Why was the primogenitor lord's spirit in this door? Could it be that the Eastern Infinity Royal Clan was related to the primogenitor lord? The Eastern Infinity Royal Clan was the race with the deepest foundation in the endless universe. Could it be that it was related to the primogenitor lord that allowed it to flourish for so long? Zhou Xuanji's thoughts began to wander. Junior, you summoned me, the primogenitor lord's spirit said. The primogenitor's spirit spoke. His voice was actually the ancestral voice. If not for Zhou Xuanji having studied the ancestral voice thoroughly, he would not have understood it at all. At least the old prisoner and Wu Yan could not understand it. They could only look at the primogenitor lord's spirit in awe. You are the primogenitor lord? Zhou Xuanji asked curiously. The primogenitor lord was definitely the greatest legend in the endless universe. He was omnipotent and could create everything. Any impossible existence could be connected to him. That's right. You cultivated my energy technique and met my spirit. This is your serendipity, the primogenitor lord's spirit replied. His tone was ethereal, and Zhou Xuanji could not tell what he was feeling. Zhou Xuanji turned to look at the old prisoner and Wu Yan. He realized that both of them had entered a state of enlightenment and were in a daze. So domineering. He could make someone like this just by speaking? Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. The old prisoner's cultivation was unfathomable after all. He was already terrifyingly powerful, but facing the primogenitor lord's spirit, he could not resist at all. Who's in charge now? The primogenitor lord's spirit asked, interrupting Zhou Xuanji's thoughts. He replied, no one's in charge. The endless universe is divided into 4 sides and is in chaos. The primogenitor lord's spirit continued, I'm asking about the Kunlun Origin Court. Chapter 1007. I will make the decisions in the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji replied. He was a little embarrassed to say this. It seemed like in the era of the primogenitor, the Kunlun Origin Court represented everything, and the Kunlun Origin Court's sovereign was the highest lord. The founder's spirit said, so that's how it is. It seems like the Kunlun Origin Court isn't as good as before. Zhou Xuanji felt a little depressed. Could he not be so direct? He said helplessly, you can't blame me. I understand. When I created those 2 techniques back then, I had already foreseen this day. If the Heaven Stabilizer Master didn't exist, there would still be 8 directions endless, 16 directions endless, and even more. The Founder Lord's spirit said calmly, his tone as always. Zhou Xuanji asked, do you have anything to say? It seemed like the spirit of the Founder Lord had not been summoned for a long time. That's right, if one didn't learn the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra, it would be impossible to summon the spirit of the First Lord. I can only give you a reminder. The spirit of the Founder Lord replied. Zhou Xuanji listened earnestly. Creation and destruction reinforce and counteract each other. You've learned the Constitution-defying Creation scripture, so there's bound to be someone who's learned the Tao of extinction. This is fate. The guy who summoned me last time was called Gu Zun. He killed the Sky Stabilizer Master who had learned the Constitution-defying Creation scripture and unified the boundless universe. The Progenitor Lord's spirit slowly said, the path of extermination created the current world. Prepare to meet your destiny. Zhou Xuanji was not surprised because he already knew that Cardinal Heaven cultivators were cultivating the Tao of extermination. He asked, I really want to know if all of you have fallen. Is it hiding in another place? There were so many invincible existences, it was impossible for them to all die at the end of cultivation. When you unify the endless universe, you will understand everything. Believe me, sometimes, the scenery at the peak isn't beautiful. The ancestor's spirit said faintly. After speaking, he dissipated into countless silver stars, which then entered Zhou Xuanji's body. Zhou Xuanji quietly enjoyed these silver stars. These silver stars allowed his cultivation to increase rapidly. That's more like it. We can't come here for nothing. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. The spirit of the Founder Lord had said so much, but it was not as useful as these silver stars. At this moment, the old prisoner and speechless suddenly woke up. The primogenitor's spirit is truly amazing. Just a single sentence from you is enough to make me fall head over heels for you. Speechless sighed, his face full of admiration. The old prisoner looked at Zhou Xuanji and asked excitedly, what did the primogenitor spirit say to you? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, I said some useless things. Old people love to reminisce. The old prisoner understood that he didn't want to say more and didn't press the issue. Just accept this gate. Even if it remains in the Emperor clan, it will only be a decoration in the restricted land. The old prisoner said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji could not help but look toward the giant door. Could it be that this door was a treasure? He activated the constitutional defying creation scripture again and used his divine power to lift the giant door. Huh. Very easy. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and stored the massive door in his palm. At this moment, the majestic gate was like a small toy, no longer having the boundless grandeur from before. He inserted his soul imprint into the giant gate. With a hong sound, a powerful pressure erupted, stirring up a gale that made his clothes flutter. Master Emperor's Door. Zhou Xuanji immediately knew its name, and at the same time, he also obtained information about its origins. This was feedback from the main Emperor Gate. This door came from the beginning of the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji did not know who had created it. Let's take a look first. The process of recognizing a master required time. He flipped his right hand and put the main Emperor Gate into the supreme storage. He turned to look at the old prisoner and asked, just who are you? The old prisoner replied, I'm a sinner of the Emperor clan. I've long since abandoned my name, and I'll follow you in the future. As long as it's not against the Emperor clan, I can help you fight against any enemy. Zhou Xuanji did not feel happy. Even though the old prisoner was very powerful, he was still someone from the Emperor clan. What if this fellow suddenly found his conscience and wanted to help his family? What would he do then? He could not have a grenade by his side. Forget it, we'll meet again in the future. Let's meet again. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and directly refused. The old prisoner became anxious and said, even if you attack the Emperor clan, I won't interfere. As long as you don't destroy the Emperor clan, it's fine. Zhou Xuanji gave a smile that did not seem like a smile and said, if you lower yourself like this, I'll be even more afraid, alright? The old prisoner felt incredibly awkward and did not know what to say. Master, I think we can take him in. Previously, when the Emperor clan was attacked, he did not even help. If not for me being imprisoned, would not even know of his existence, Wuyan said seriously. The old prisoner nodded and said seriously, even though I'm a member of the Emperor clan, a long time ago, I was also a servant of the Founder Master's bloodline. If not for the Founder Master's bloodline taking pity on me, the Emperor clan would not have fallen to where it is today. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji sized him up. According to what he said, wasn't he the ancestor of the Emperor clan? Wu Yan was shocked too, and his eyes opened wide. Seeing his eyes, Zhou Xuanji knew that he would not give up. Forget it. Follow me and bring us out first. I'm going to fetch my two subordinates. You know where they are, Zhou Xuanji said helplessly. It might be a good idea to let this old fellow deal with Gu Juejiao. The old prisoner nodded and left with them. Within the Emperor clan's world. A chaotic battle was getting more and more intense. The blood dragon ghost and Zhongji's figures constantly intertwined, and they were locked in battle. Zhongji's hair was disheveled, and his face was filled with anger. He waved his palms and shouted furiously, "Blood dragon ghost, right? When I slaughter Bai Wujin, I will hold Zhou Xuanji's head as a sacrifice to you." The blood dragon ghost was surrounded by a bloody wind. It was extremely fast, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Are you a fool? You might die today, but you are still thinking about the future. No wonder you keep losing. What rank did that reptile called Emperor Lu rank under you last time? The blood dragon ghost laughed contemptuously. Those afterimages did not dissipate. They used various divine abilities and besieged Zhongji. Zhongji resisted while suppressing his anger. He glanced into the distance. Shen Nianxing was surrounded by the experts of the Emperor clan, but she was still not defeated. As long as no more enemies appeared, the crisis of the Emperor clan was nothing. He silently analyzed in his heart. But the blood dragon ghost was too strong. He couldn't defeat it in a short time. Do I have to ask the ancestor to make a move? Zhongji gritted his teeth and thought with hesitation in his eyes. Boom! The sky was suddenly cut open, and 3 figures descended from the crack in the sky. They were Zhou Xuanji, Wu Yan, and the old prisoner. Zhou Xuanji held a sword of light in his hand. Annihilation Judgment. He slashed with his sword, and a powerful light burst forth. Many floating islands exploded one after another. Zhongji cast a spell with his left hand and used his divine energy to block most of the impact, but he still couldn't completely block it. Sons of the Emperor clan, today's calamity is not without reason. If you want to blame someone, blame your clan leader for invading Bai Wujin. Zhou Xuanji laughed deliberately. His voice spread throughout the entire Emperor clan's world. Chapter 1008. Zhou Xuanji's voice reverberated throughout the royal clan's world. Zhongji's face was extremely unsightly, but he did not refute Zhou Xuanji. In the Eastern Endless royal family, he was the absolute overlord. You want to shake my prestige with just a few words? Impossible. Zhongji ignored Zhou Xuanji. He only had one thought in his mind, which was to get rid of the blood dragon ghost as soon as possible before killing the other enemies. His eyes flickered with a bewitching purple light, and his long hair danced in the wind, giving rise to torrential flames. His entire body turned into a ball of blood-red flames. The blood dragon ghouls sneered and turned into countless afterimages, besieging Zhongji again. Bang! Zhongji's blood flames suddenly exploded, turning into a sea of fire that swept in all directions. The afterimages of the blood dragon ghost were scattered one after another, like candlelight being blown out by the wind. Zhongji instantly appeared behind the blood dragon ghost. The blood flames on his body turned into long snakes that wrapped around the blood dragon ghost. The blood dragon ghost struggled with all its might, but it was unable to break free. Die! A purple light shot out from Zhongji's eyes and enveloped the blood dragon ghost. A white light pillar descended from the sky and engulfed the blood dragon ghost. With a deafening bang, the aura of the blood dragon ghost disappeared. Zhou Xuanji was still watching the show. Speechless, asked curiously, "You're not in a hurry?" He could no longer feel the aura of the ghost blood dragon, so he was sure that it was dead. "He won't die," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. The old prisoner stared at the blood energy in front of Zhongji thoughtfully. At the same time, the momentum of the battle on Shen Nianxing's side reached its peak. The momentum of hundreds of powerhouses gathered together, causing the whole world to tremble and face the danger of collapse. Zhongji turned around and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Pa! His right hand was grabbed by the old prisoner, and his palm was less than 10 centimeters away from Zhou Xuanji's chest. His expression changed as he glanced at the old prisoner. "It's you." "What do you mean?" Zhongji asked in a low voice. He had seen the old prisoner before, but he wasn't familiar with him. As far as he could remember, he had only seen the old prisoner a few times. Let them leave, or else the imperial family will be destroyed in your hands, said the old prisoner coldly. Zongji frowned and felt humiliated. He immediately released his divine power and prepared to resist. However, as soon as his divine power left his body, it was dispersed by an invisible force. How is this possible? Zongji's eyes widened. He had felt strange when he saw the old prisoner before, but he hadn't felt any danger from the old prisoner, so he hadn't paid much attention to it. Now, the old prisoner gave him a creepy feeling. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, Zongji, listen to his advice. He's your senior. If you give up on attacking Northern Infinity, I will not seek trouble with you. But if you insist, I will make sure that you will never have a day of peace. He spoke softly, but his murderous intent was clear. Zongji felt humiliated. He suppressed his anger and asked the old prisoner, Who are you? Why have you been in the imperial prison all this time? The old prisoner replied, I can be considered your ancestor. The imperial clan has existed for so many years and produced so many heavenly geniuses. When has it ever stood at the peak? Our royal family doesn't have that fate. Everything we have now was given to us by the progenitor. His words were so piercing to Zongji's ears. Zongji's anger had already filled his chest. He regarded the honor of the royal family as his pride. How could he allow others to trample on it like this? Moreover, this person claimed to be his ancestor, which was like a slap to his face. He even had an attitude of pity for him. Zongji gritted his teeth and tried his best to resist. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free from the old prisoner's power. At this moment, the blood dragon ghost appeared beside Zhou Xuanji out of nowhere. He stared at the old prisoner with squinted eyes that were filled with hostility. He couldn't see through the old prisoner's cultivation, so he instinctively resisted. Go and save her, Zhou Xuanji ordered. The blood dragon ghost hesitated for a moment and immediately went to support Shen Nianqing. Zongji's heart trembled. Why isn't that guy dead? Impossible. Just now, Zongji instantly felt that the world had turned dark. He could only watch the blood dragon ghost slaughtering his people. He stared at the old prisoner with bloodshot eyes and asked, Since you are my ancestor, why are you allowing the enemy to slaughter your descendants? The old prisoner replied calmly, I'm not letting it go. I'm giving you a way out. You don't know what era it is now, and you don't know what kind of enemies you will encounter in the future. Brat, as the clan master, you have never experienced great storms. Your vision is too low. Puff! Zongji was so angry that he vomited blood. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Zhou Xuanji felt sorry for him. It was too tragic. I'll ask you again, do you want to stop the war? Zhou Xuanji stared at Zongji and asked seriously. He actually wanted to kill Zongji. But after thinking about it, if Zongji was willing to compromise, it would be more helpful to him. Once he destroyed the royal family and killed Zongji, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. Even Cardinal Heaven experts would not dare to cooperate with him anymore. Zongji listened to the screams coming from afar. His face turned extremely ugly. He fell into a dilemma. On the one hand, it was his dignity. On the other hand, it was the life and death of his people. Damn, why haven't those old things come out yet? Zongji roared furiously in his heart. He suddenly thought of a possibility, and his heart turned cold. Could this old man really be his ancestor? So the other ancestors didn't come out? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Sorrow rose from his heart. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, I admit defeat. I will no longer attack Eastern Infinity. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji calmly nodded. He immediately transmitted his voice to the blood dragon ghost and Shen Nianqing. The blood dragon ghost returned to his side instantly. Shen Nianqing was a little hesitant. But she had already vented her hatred and was happy. After thinking about it, she decided to listen to Zhou Xuanji's instructions. When she returned to Zhou Xuanji's side, Zhou Xuanji gave the old prisoner a look. The old prisoner retracted his hand, and Zongji quickly retreated. He lowered his head. He was like a beast at the end of its road, exuding despair and hostility. Zhou Xuanji raised the corner of his mouth and left with Shen Nianxing and the other three. Zongji trembled in the air. Anger filled his heart. Damn! I can't forgive. I can't, he gritted his teeth and muttered to himself with great difficulty. The next moment, he suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was filled with hatred. Inside the space-time kaleidoscope, Shen Nianxing curled her lips and asked, "Hey, are you really not going to kill that guy? You must eliminate the roots." Zhou Xuanji nodded speechlessly. It's useful to keep him. Zongji will not target me in the short term. I can also take this opportunity to deal with Gu Juejiao. If I really kill him, will Gu Juejiao, Cardinal Heaven, Hunyuan Heaven, and so on let me continue to develop? Zhou Xuanji shook his head. He could feel Zongji's hatred but he didn't care. The old prisoner said, "As long as I am here, I will not let that kid hurt my lord." My lord? When did you worship her? The blood dragon ghost questioned. He was very unhappy with the old prisoner. The old prisoner calmly replied, "Does a subordinate have the right to talk?" You. The blood dragon ghost was furious. He wanted to attack. But with Zhou Xuanji beside him, he didn't dare to act recklessly. Chapter 1009. Not killing them is the right thing to do. The other overlords will think that the Lord is afraid. Under such circumstances, they will lower their guard against the Lord. Moreover, it is too difficult to destroy the royal family. There are many old ancestors hidden in the royal family. They did not act today, but it does not mean that they will allow the royal family to be destroyed. Wordless said, analyzing for Zhou Xuanji. Shen Nianxing rolled her eyes and glanced at the old prisoner, but didn't say anything more. Let's see if Zongji can keep his promise. If he can't, we'll come again. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. His biggest gain from this trip was joining the emperor's sect. He wanted to go back and study it thoroughly. Since this door could contain the spirit of the founder, it was definitely extraordinary. The blood dragon stared at the old prisoner with an unfriendly gaze. The old prisoner closed his eyes to rest, no longer saying anything. They did not encounter any accidents during the journey from the Eastern Infinity Realm back to the Myriad Stars domain. After returning, Zhou Xuanji asked Yuan Sheng to take care of the old prisoner. The old prisoner, however, made an absurd demand. He asked to be admitted to prison. He liked the atmosphere of prison. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. He did not stop him and allowed him to do so. Yuan Shengqin brought him to the largest prison in the astral domain and instructed the prison guards not to make things difficult for him. Zhou Xuanji did not tell them what he had done in the Eastern Boundless Realm. He gave some simple instructions before letting everyone leave. He took out the main emperor door and observed it attentively. The main emperor's door spun on his palm. Why did the founding master leave behind this door? Unfortunately, that old fellow refused to say. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself, feeling quite conflicted. He had spent a lot of time coming back, but the master emperor's door had not yet recognized him as its master. Just by looking with his naked eye and spiritual will, he could not see anything. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and patiently waited for the process. A month later, the Eastern Endless royal family retreated from the Northern Endless border. This news spread to all of the factions. Even though Zongji didn't say anything publicly and even suppressed the incident in the royal family's world, the other factions weren't stupid. They all understood that the East Boundless royal family had been defeated. The entire area was shaken. The name of the Sword Monarch Divine Court spread throughout the various worlds. Zhou Xuanji gave the order for the entire Sword Emperor Divine Court to celebrate, and the Divine Court would pay for the banquet. As soon as this order was issued, all living beings rejoiced. After defeating the Eastern boundless Imperials, the Sword Emperor Divine Court had built up their confidence and cohesiveness. Now, they felt from the bottom of their hearts that the Sword Emperor Divine Court was no longer a rising star, but a true overlord of the boundless universe. Throughout history, apart from them, who had defeated the Eastern Endless Imperial family? At that moment, the Northern Infinity Realm was filled with all sorts of rumors about Zhou Xuanji. Meanwhile, within the Eastern Boundless Lands, the living beings were indignant, because in their eyes, the Imperial family did not put in any effort. Apart from 10 aspect Shenluo, the royal family did not send any famous powerhouses. Emperor Luo was not from the royal family. Not only that, Emperor Luo was notorious in the East Endless Land. His death did not incite any grief or indignation. What is the royal family doing? Are you scared now? Hee, looks like the East Endless world is too peaceful. Peace causes people to slack off. Zhongji is not fit to lead Eastern Limitless. Sword Emperor is too amazing. It's said that the Sword Arch could kill Zhongji with one sword strike and force the royal family to surrender. This is too shameful. The face of our Eastern Limitless has been completely thrown away by the royal family. All living beings discussed. Most of them were dissatisfied. After all, it was the royalty who took the initiative to attack Northern Limitless, but in the end, the royalty retreated? What nonsense. If they wanted to fight, they had to win. Different voices could be heard within the royal family. That day, not all the clansmen were present in the royal family's world. Those clansmen who were outside immediately exploded when they returned. Just like that, Eastern Limitless fell into internal turmoil. The news of Eastern Limitless Land's defeat spread to Western Limitless. Gujuagio was furious when he heard this. That trash, Zhongji, was defeated? He promised me that he would take down Northern Limitless, but in the end, he retreated first. Gujuagio was so angry that he laughed. Hundreds of figures stood in the bright hall, and they were all Gujuagio's generals and strategists. They were all frowning and seemed very anxious. Although they looked down on Eastern Limitless cowardice, they had to guess the current strength of the Sword Arch Divine Court. Master, we can sow discord between the Sword Arch and the Cardinal Heaven experts. If the Sword Arch defeats Eastern Limitless, will the Cardinal Heaven experts still dare to cooperate with him? An elder stood out and said. Many people nodded in agreement with his words. Gujuagio said coldly, no need. I can suppress them alone. Everyone in the hall was anxious and tried to dissuade him. No. Master, although you are powerful, the Cardinal Heaven experts are legends. The Sword Arch might have someone backing him up. We can't act recklessly. We must defeat them one by one. Zhongji was defeated because he underestimated the Sword Arch Divine Court. That's right. We must have a plan. Hearing these comments, Gujuagio became even more furious. He stood up and roared, you think I will lose? Pass down my order. Attack Northern Limitless. All sects, clans, races, and independent courts in Western Limitless must contribute. Whoever dares to defy the order will be exterminated. Within 100 years, I want Northern Limitless to be as dead as the lawless region. Now. Leave. A violent aura exploded and wreaked havoc in the hall. Everyone bowed and left in fear. They knew Gujuagio's temper very well. If they continued to dissuade him, they might die. But they did not understand why Gujuagio was so angry. They did not know that Gujuagio's son was in Zhou Xuanji's hands. On that day, the order to start the war was passed down in Western Limitless. All the factions received the news. They must take down Northern Limitless within 100 years. In the Star Hall. Zhou Xuanji held the Master Emperor's door in his hand and exclaimed, such a powerful enchanted artifact. Even imperishable stage cultivators might not be able to withstand its pressure. The Master Emperor's door had already acknowledged him as its owner. There was only one restriction in the door. It was a restriction that could release its true weight. Zhou Xuanji had never seen such a heavy enchanted artifact. After he deactivated the restriction, he sprawled on the ground, and the star hall sank with him. He was so frightened that he immediately deactivated the restriction. Such a weight was beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. It could not only suppress one's body but also one's magic energy and soul. It was so heavy that it could suppress everything. What kind of material can be used to refine such an enchanted artifact? Zhou Xuanji was curious. He played with the Master Emperor's door and was reluctant to let it go. Suddenly, Yuan Cheng and Jin Cheng's auras came from outside the hall. Zhou Xuanji stored the Master Emperor's door and opened it. Soon, the two entered the hall. Gu Juejiao is crazy. He said that he will flatten us within 100 years. Jin Cheng said anxiously, his face full of anxiety. Zhou Xuanji was not surprised but smiled. Yuan Cheng said with a frown, although Gu Juejiao is arrogant, he's too crazy. He knew that we had just won a great battle and still dared to act so recklessly. Zhou Xuanji told them about the conflict between him and Gu Tianlin. The two were dumbfounded. They did not know about this. You mean that you have already killed Gu Tianlin? Yuan Cheng asked carefully. Chapter 10:10. Not yet. I left a remnant of his soul, Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. Gu Tianlin was still in his soul, the Kunlun sword, and he was often forgotten by him. If he did not mention Gu Juejiao, he would not even think of Gu Tianlin. Yuan Cheng sighed, then it makes sense. Gu Juejiao will definitely come for you. Our crisis has just begun. Gu Juejiao and Zhong Ji were both endless overlords, but who was more powerful? Most living beings would answer Gu Juejiao. Gu Juejiao could be said to be the top cultivator in the endless universe. It's okay. Let him come. I will be waiting. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. With the blood dragon ghost, the old prisoner, and Shen Yanqing, what was there for him to be afraid of? Gu Juejiao could not even deal with a cardinal heaven cultivator, and he wanted to destroy him? 100 years? Not even 10 billion years. Spread the news and prepare for war. Against Bei Wujin, the reward will be twice as much as before. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand in high spirits. He was not afraid of Gu Juejiao at all. Hearing this, Yuan Cheng and Jin Cheng's expressions changed drastically. Twice as much. Jin Cheng said first. The Sword God Court would collect taxes from all living beings so that they could maintain their army and pay for their subordinates. Not long ago, Zhou Xuanji asked everyone to hold a banquet, and now he promised double the reward. This drove them crazy. Zhou Xuanji was the master and did not need to care about the specific operations below, but they did. Apart from paying attention to the war, they also had to think about generating income. Don't worry. As long as we win, more factions will come to worship us. If they want to worship us, they must pay a price. We are no longer the same as before, Zhou Xuanji said indifferently. Zhou Xuanji said nonchalantly. The Sword Emperor Divine Court did not just focus on fighting. They protected so many merchant alliance, and the merchant alliance would also provide resources and support. Yuan Cheng and Jin Cheng looked at each other and could only agree helplessly. After they left, Zhou Xuanji did not cultivate but disappeared from the palace. He was going to check on his children's situation. In the dim blue universe, Bai Yinzi stood in the void with 3 massive stone steels in front of him. Many black lizard-like creatures were lying on the steels. Why didn't the elders of the royal family make a move? A majestic voice rang out from the stone tablet, filled with majesty. Bai Yinzi bowed and replied, a royal ancestor sided with Zhou Xuanji, so those powerhouses did not come. Speaking of this, he also felt that it was strange. What were the imperial ancestral patriarchs planning to do? What was Zhou Xuanji hiding? Is it the one locked up in prison? A hoarse voice came from the other stone tablet, asking Silver. Bai Yinzi nodded and asked curiously, who is he? Nothing more than a traitor, Vast Expanse replied. The more Bai Yinzi listened, the more curious he became, but he didn't dare to ask. Help Gujuagio with all your strength and flatten Bai Wujin. No matter who is behind Zhou Xuanji, destroy him along with Cardinal Heaven experts. That traitor's cultivation is not bad. Later, we will give you an artifact to suppress him. The hoarse voice ordered, and Bai Yinzi's pupils shrank. He understood that the other party was angry. The reason was not Zhou Xuanji but that traitor. You vermin also want to betray your master? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The hoarse voice laughed disdainfully and was filled with murderous intent. Bai Yinzi was terrified and could not help but mourn for Zhou Xuanji. Surrounded by a sea of clouds, Zhou Tanhua was preaching to several of his disciples on the top of the mountain. He was talking about his sword Dao, and his disciples were listening very seriously. He didn't notice that someone was staring at them from above the clouds. It was his father. Zhou Xuanji looked at this scene and fell into a deep sigh. Back in the mortal world, he had also talked with Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Zongjian, and the others like this. Time really flies, Zhou Xuanji sighed. Now that he calmed down and thought about it, he suddenly felt a little confused. Is it really meaningful to keep getting stronger? It seemed that every time he thought that the strongest existence was actually a frog in a well. There was no end to the path of becoming stronger. Even someone as strong as the Ancestor Master was only left with the Ancestor Master's spirit. Zhou Xuanji's thoughts drifted away. After a while, the outer soul avatar he had left in the Star's Palace sent him a message. He immediately moved back. He sat on the throne and let Shen Nianqing come in. Shen Nianqing walked up to the stairs with a solemn look on her face. What's wrong? Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile. This time, Shen Nianqing didn't break in directly but lingered outside the palace for a long time. Looking at her expression, it seemed that something was wrong. I feel that something is wrong. My cultivation is dissipating. It seems that a calamity is coming, Shen Nianqing sighed. Her eyes were filled with worry. She looked at Zhou Xuanji and asked, Do you have this feeling? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, Why should I? It may be related to the destiny of Hongmeng Heaven. It is said that Hongmeng Heaven is actually a curse, Shen Nianqing said seriously. Zhou Xuanji found it funny. What kind of curse can affect their cultivation? Shen Nianqing cried out, Yes, there is. I had this feeling before I fell, so I was very annoyed. I fell into blind self-comfort and finally went to the royal family's world. Zhou Xuanji comforted her, Don't think too much. Did Gujuagio give you too much pressure? Shen Nianqing glared at him. She took a deep breath and said seriously, Anyway, I reminded you. After speaking, she turned around and was about to leave. Wait, you came here for this? Zhou Xuanji called out to her, feeling puzzled. Shen Nianqing looked back at him and said helplessly, Otherwise? Could it be that I have other enemies? Now, you have more enemies than me. She turned her head away and quickly left. For some reason, looking at her back, Zhou Xuanji felt that something was wrong. This girl's state isn't right. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but ponder. Could there really be a curse in Hongmeng Heaven? After half an hour, Yuan Cheng came looking for him. Master, an army from West Endless has appeared at the border of the Sword Emperor Divine Court. The war is coming. Yuan Cheng said anxiously. The other party was an ancient genius. Even if they had already defeated East Endless, he was still a little unconfident. Then let's go to war, Zhou Xuanji waved his hand. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand. He was already prepared. Yuan Cheng nodded and asked, Can we invite the Blood Dragon Ghost? It is said that West Endless has a powerful army this time. I don't know who it is, but with the Blood Dragon Ghost, the casualties can be reduced. The Sword Emperor Divine Court was developing rapidly, but the number of creatures was far from reaching the level of an overlord in all directions. Zhou Xuanji hesitated for a moment before summoning the Blood Dragon Ghost. The appearance of the evil Blood Dragon Ghost made Yuan Cheng beam with joy. Remember, don't be playful and listen to Yuan Cheng's arrangements. Zhou Xuanji stared at the Blood Dragon Ghost and said seriously. The blood dragon ghost glanced at Yuan Sheng and nodded reluctantly. After the two left, Zhou Xuanji was about to take out the Master Emperor door when a murderous aura appeared in the hall. He frowned and said coldly, "Who is it? Come out." Just as he spoke, a figure descended from the sky. Astonishingly, it was silver. Chapter 10-11. May I know who you are? Zhou Xuanji asked. He raised his right hand and activated Annihilation Judgment. A sword of light appeared in his hand. Since Bai Yinzi had barged in, she definitely didn't come with good intentions. Before the battle, he wanted to know Silver's identity. Bai Yinzi sized Zhou Xuanji up and praised, "You are more powerful than the rumors say." He had been paying attention to Zhou Xuanji for a long time. But before, he did not take Zhou Xuanji seriously. He was only curious as to why Zhong Ji would pay so much attention to such a junior. Zhou Xuanji stared at him and waited for him to reveal his identity. "I'm from the lawless region, my name is Silver. Zhong Ji and I are good friends, I'm here to take your life. Do you have any last wishes?" Bai Yinzi's face turned cold, and she said in a cold voice. Killing intent instantly filled the entire Stars Hall. "No access zone?" Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. After knowing that his opponent was Zhong Ji's good friend, he immediately wanted to kill him. "Let's fight outside," Zhou Xuanji said coldly. He had already activated the sword fusion technique, and his aura grew tremendously. Bai Yinzi had no objections, and the two of them directly jumped out of the Hall of Stars. They arrived at the void region at the peak of the boundless universe. A silver radiance burst out from Zhou Xuanji's body. He turned into a man of light and slashed with his sword. Silver took out a silver whip and swung it quickly. Countless silver crystals appeared in the void and surrounded Zhou Xuanji. Bang! Countless silver crystals burst forth with light, illuminating the entire void. Imperishable realm. Zhou Xuanji sensed many formless energies wrapping around him. He wanted to swing his sword but found that he could not do so. He furrowed his brows in surprise. What kind of power is this? The binding force was actually getting stronger. As soon as he mobilized his divine power, he would be restrained, and as soon as he stopped, the restraining power would stop increasing. The most terrifying thing was that this restraining force would only grow and not weaken. The silver suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already above Zhou Xuanji's head and lashed out with his whip. Zhou Xuanji immediately used the Sword Emperor Extinction. Berserk divine power exploded, shattering everything. Silver was not shaken. It continued to suppress the long whip and hit Zhou Xuanji's body. Pa! Zhou Xuanji's soul almost left his body. Zhou Xuanji's eyes flickered, and he immediately used his soul to shout the constitution-defying creation scripture. In an instant, the surrounding light began to spin around him, including the silver crystal chips. Bai Yinzi frowned, a bewildered look on her face. In front of the constitution-defying creation scripture, the realm of immortality was like an empty shell. Imperishable reversal. Zhou Xuanji held Annihilation Judgment in his hand and slashed. The sword flashed, and Silver Z subconsciously blocked it with her silver whip. A terrifying explosion rang out, and Silver was blasted away. What kind of power is this? How is this possible? Bai Yinzi's expression changed drastically. His cultivation was clearly not on the same level as Zhou Xuanji's. So how could Zhou Xuanji suddenly explode with such power? What was hidden in this kid's body? Bai Yinzi was even more interested in Zhou Xuanji. He decided to leave Zhou Xuanji's corpse intact so that he could study it. Zhou Xuanji turned around and slashed at him again. Boom! Annihilation Judgment slashed at Silver with incredible speed. It was so fast that Silver Fairy couldn't dodge in time. She instinctively raised her whip to block. He was sent flying again. This time, he was furious. He was actually sent flying by a junior. Shame! Zhou Xuanji frowned. He did not expect that even his most powerful divine ability could not hurt Biyao. As far as the eye could see, the universe was collapsing. All kinds of auroras appeared like illusions. Under the brilliance, it was filled with killing intent. Silver Fairy suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Xuanji, frantically waving her whip. The silver whip seemed to be tens of thousands of feet long, setting off countless afterimages. It was extremely spectacular. Zhou Xuanji relied on the light on his body to resist his attack. The constitution-defying creation scripture was running at high speed. The faded pearl appeared in his eyes, helping him strengthen. But even so, Silver Fairy's silver whip was getting closer and closer to his face. If this continued, he would be hit in less than 5 breaths. With Silver Fairy's power, it was enough to blow up his body. At this moment, a figure passed by Zhou Xuanji's side. He caught a glimpse of it. Shen Nianqing. She bypassed the rapidly waving silver whip like a ghost, raised her right hand, and grabbed Silver Fairy's face. Silver Fairy's eyes widened. It was too late to resist and was dragged into the depths of the void by Shen Nianqing. Boom! Silver Fairy burst into a dazzling light, forcing Shen Nianqing back. Hong Meng Heaven. You are still alive. Are you his backer? Silver Fairy stared at Shen Nianqing and asked in a deep voice. Shen Nianqing's face was as cold as frost. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. She didn't answer him and also took out a long whip. A long whip exuding the mortal chi. Mortal whip. She lashed out and the whip disappeared into thin air, instantly hitting Silver Fairy's body. Silver Fairy was whipped until a layer of red chi was emitted. A look of horror appeared on his face as he cried out, "How can I have mortal chi? Creating something out of nothing. Have you recovered to your peak?" Shen Nianqing still didn't answer him. She continued to swing her whip, lashing out thousands of times in one breath, causing a majestic red mist to bloom behind Silver Fairy. The mortal chi leaving the body meant that Zhou Xuanji's luck was being extracted. Silver Fairy was horrified. He wasn't immortal. He didn't have mortal chi at all. However, Shen Nianqing forcefully gave him mortal chi and used it to attack him to extract his luck. Once his luck was exhausted, he would die without a doubt. Hong Meng Heaven. Do you know who I represent? Silver Fairy asked angrily. Her words were full of threats. Shen Nianqing asked expressionlessly, "You want to deal with Zhou Xuanji? That's not how you do things." She changed the topic and asked, "Could it be that that guy is going to appear again?" At the mention of that existence, fear flashed in her eyes. "It's good that you know," Silver Fairy said with a cold snort. He could see through Shen Nianqing's fear. Zhou Xuanji was surprised. It was the first time he had seen Shen Nianqing so afraid of someone. How many undying old monsters are hidden in the lawless region? "I can let you go, but how can I make your master give up hunting Zhou Xuanji?" Shen Nianqing asked in a deep voice. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, "What are you afraid of? Who is behind him?" He had seen the power of the lawless fire god, so in his heart, the lawless region was more powerful than the 4 directions. Shen Nianqing ignored him and locked her eyes on Silver Fairy. Silver Fairy shook her head and said, "You should be clear that his decision can't be changed by others." Hearing this, Shen Nianqing's murderous aura suddenly increased. "I advise you to give up on him. The post-ancient sovereign 3 heavens is only famous for all living beings. In their eyes, you are nothing at all," Silver Fairy said meaningfully. Shen Nianqing's eyes flickered. Silver Fairy looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "I advise you to come with me. Otherwise, everything you care about will no longer exist." Zhou Xuanji smiled disdainfully and said, "Do you have the ability to kill me?" As his voice fell, he directly summoned the blood dragon ghost. Miao Shu House. Chapter 10-12. As soon as the blood dragon ghost appeared, its hostility soared into the sky. He immediately looked at Biyao and asked with a cold smile, "Master, are you going to tear him apart?" Biyao was moved. The aura of the blood dragon ghost was very strong. It made his hair stand on end. After all, the blood dragon ghost was an existence that could fight against Zhong Ji. Zhou Xuanji responded softly. Zhou Xuanji replied softly, and the blood dragon immediately charged toward Bai Yinzi. Boom! Bai Yinzi was sent flying by his claw. His right sleeve was torn apart, and 2 shocking bloodstains appeared on his arm. Bai Yinzi was furious. He immediately lashed out with his whip. At the same time, he once again erupted with the indestructible realm. A silver light swept across. Countless silver crystals floated above the sea of silver light. The blood dragon ghost smiled disdainfully. At the same time, it displayed its indestructible realm. With him as the center, the blood-colored sea raged, rushing toward Bai Yinzi's indestructible realm. The 2 indestructible realms collided. All kinds of illusions emerged one after another. Zhou Xuanji felt a sense of oppression that made his soul tremble. He narrowed his eyes and watched the battle seriously. Shen Nianqing flew to his side and sighed, "Brat, you are too unlucky. You are targeted by the lawless region. Run as far as you can." Zhou Xuanji glanced at her and said in a bad mood, "Look at your cowardly look. Weren't you in Hong Meng heaven before? You are not afraid of anything." Hearing this, Shen Nianqing didn't get angry. She took a deep breath and said helplessly, "The monsters in the lawless region are really strong. There are many ancient creatures that have survived since the ancient sovereign period. Bai Yinzi's backer is very mysterious but also very strong. I once entered the lawless region by mistake and ran into him. I almost died. Fortunately, he didn't care about me." Zhou Xuanji was puzzled. He asked, "From what you said, that guy should be indifferent to fame and fortune. Why does he want to kill me?" Shen Nianqing shook her head. She didn't know either. But she understood one thing. Zhou Xuanji was in big trouble. Seeing that she couldn't explain it clearly, Zhou Xuanji could only turn to look at the blood dragon ghost and Bai Yinzi. The battle between the 2 was extremely fast. The 2 indestructible realms kept exploding and regenerating. They seemed to be moving through the 2-colored waves. They were locked in a fierce battle. The blood dragon ghost's claws were his sharpest weapons. With just his claws, he could tear apart all of Silver's divine abilities. "This guy is too hard to deal with," Bai Yinzi gritted his teeth. If it weren't for Shen Nianqing scattering so much luck, how could he have been forced to this point? A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. If that was the case, then don't blame me. The silver suddenly exploded and turned into a cloud of silver mist, surging and fluctuating. Rumble, thunderclouds appeared out of nowhere, and countless lightning bolts flashed, intertwining with the silver mist. The blood dragon ghoul stopped, and its expression changed as it exclaimed, "This aura, it's you." The silver mist surged and condensed into a blurry giant face. "Blood dragon ghost, it seems like this kid really obtained that inheritance." A voice rang out. It was a voice filled with the weight of history, causing the hearts of those who heard it to sink. The blood dragon ghoul gritted its teeth and said, "Stinking reptile, why aren't you dead yet?" The giant face replied, "If I don't surpass my predecessors, why should I die?" Boom! 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 Bolts of lightning containing the power to destroy the world struck the blood dragon ghost. Like iron chains, they wrapped around the blood dragon ghost's limbs and neck. The blood dragon ghost struggled, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't break free. He laughed furiously and said, "Reptile, after so many years, you are very powerful. You know my identity and still dare to mess around. Aren't you afraid that my previous master is still alive?" Hearing this, the giant face fell silent. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He didn't expect this person to know the blood dragon ghost. Could it be that he was from the same era as Sovereign Qian Xian? If this was the case, no wonder Shen Nianqing was so flustered. However, from the tone of the blood dragon ghost, the giant face was obviously a junior. Just as Zhou Xuanji was thinking, the giant face spoke again, Sovereign Qian Xin is dead. His will has long dissipated. It is impossible for him to be alive. If you stop me again, don't blame me for being rude. The blood dragon ghost grinned sinisterly and said, then come. It roared fiercely as its body began to expand, quickly turning into a giant that was tens of thousands of meters tall. The muscles on its limbs were exaggerated, and its tail wantonly waved, breaking the lightning chains. It immediately rushed toward the giant face. Countless lightning bolts suddenly descended, trying to stop it, but it was forcibly broken through. The blood dragon ghost charged at the giant face and punched. Blood chi crisscrossed like a twisting dragon. The giant face suddenly opened its mouth, and a black beam of light shot out from its mouth. It expanded rapidly, trying to drown the blood dragon ghost. In the face of this pressure, Zhou Xuanji once again felt the feeling of weakness. Who is the giant face? Why does it want to kill me? Is it coveting the constitution-defying creation scripture? The blood dragon ghost was constantly pushed back by the black beam of light shot out by the giant face. It seemed that the blood dragon ghost was no match for the giant face. With a thought, Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand, and the main emperor door suddenly flew out. The main emperor door flew toward the giant face, flew over the blood dragon ghost's head, and stopped above the giant face. The giant face looked up at the main emperor door and didn't care. He focused his attention on the blood dragon ghost. As long as the blood dragon ghost was eliminated, Zhou Xuanji would be in his pocket. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji suddenly removed the restriction on the main emperor door. In the blink of an eye, the main emperor door returned to its majestic height and suddenly descended. Boom! The giant face was directly crushed by the main emperor door, and the black beam of light that was attacking the blood dragon ghost dissipated. Shen Nianqing's eyes widened in shock. The blood dragon ghost was also shocked. Their gazes fell on the main emperor door with a strange look in their eyes. I seem to have seen this door somewhere before, Shen Nianqing frowned as she muttered to herself. She had been to the Eastern Infinity Royal Clan, but she had never been to the Royal Clan's forbidden area. The blood dragon ghost looked at the main emperor door thoughtfully. At this moment, the silver mist was also dispersed by the main emperor door. The mist gathered again and condensed into Biyao. Biyao didn't notice the main emperor door below. Instead, he looked at Zhou Xuanji and the blood dragon ghost and said, "You have already seen him. Shouldn't you give up struggling?" Zhou Xuanji looked at him and shook his head. Biyao was furious and said, "If that's the case, then I will." Boom! The main emperor door suddenly rose. It was extremely fast and directly smashed into Biyao, destroying both his body and soul. Not even a trace of his soul was left. The blood dragon ghost and Shen Nianqing were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. How is this possible? What kind of treasure is this? The blood dragon ghost asked in a trembling voice. His eyes almost popped out. He didn't feel the majestic power from the main emperor door. He couldn't understand how the main emperor door could have such lethality. Zhou Xuanji took back the main emperor door and said calmly, "It's just a little thing. Let's go, it's time to go back." He wasn't happy because the crisis had just begun. The main emperor door could suppress everything, but its shortcomings were also very obvious. As long as he avoided the main emperor door was just a decoration. Shen Nianqing flew to Zhou Xuanji's side and asked, "Where did you get this artifact?" She looked a little excited. Could it be that there is someone behind Zhou Xuanji? Chapter 10:13. I can't say. I'm about to fight with Gu Juejiao. I'll have to trouble you then. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and smiled. The main emperor's sex history could not be revealed. If he used it well, he could create the impression that the progenitor lord was his backer. However, the progenitor master was illusory. Would the enemy believe him? Shen Nianqing took a deep look at him and no longer persuaded him to escape. She still could not see through him. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed like she was helping Zhou Xuanji along the way, but she knew that her help was just icing on the cake. Zhou Xuanji had relied on himself to turn the tables in many life and death situations. The more she thought about it, the more she thought about it. She suddenly looked up at Zhou Xuanji with a trace of fear in her eyes. Zhou Xuanji recalled the blood dragon ghost. After returning to the star's domain, he separated from Shen Yanxing. He quickly arrived at the prison where the old prisoner was being held. He used his divine power to seal the cell and then sat in front of the old prisoner. "Congratulations on killing an enemy, my lord." The old prisoner chuckled. In the dim prison cell, it was impossible to see his face clearly. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Why didn't you attack earlier?" The old prisoner smiled and said, "Didn't you solve it?" From his words, it was obvious that he had witnessed everything that had just happened. "Lord, there is no need to worry. If the other party could directly attack you, you would have died long ago. They are just bluffing. The existences in the lawless region are indeed powerful, but there is one thing we can be sure of. They are unable to enter the boundless universe." The old prisoner continued. "The ancient sovereign opened up the boundless cosmos and created a brand new era. The creatures of the past were unable to enter. This is the greatness of the ancient sovereign." So that was how it was. Zhou Xuanji felt strange. But why is Shen Yanxing so worried? Could it be that Shen Yanxing did not know about this? "Although they can't come in, they will think of a way to kill you. You need to be prepared," the old prisoner said faintly. Zhou Xuanji asked, "How is your strength compared to Bai Yinzi's?" The old prisoner replied, "He is just a junior." Zhou Xuanji sized him up carefully and suddenly felt that this old guy was a little unfathomable. As expected of the ancestor of the Endless East royal family. "They targeted me because of my identity as a descendant of the primogenitor?" Zhou Xuanji asked. What he was implying was to defy the constitution and create a sutra. The old prisoner didn't know about the constitutional defying creation scripture. He nodded and said, "That should be the case. The bloodline of the founding master isn't known by the masses at all. They only know the founding master. Someone must have purposely concealed it." Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. This meant that the person behind Bai Yinzi was not targeting him but the primogenitor's faction? "You have become my subordinate, but you have not done anything yet. Next time, no matter who comes, you have to act, understand?" Zhou Xuanji looked into the old prisoner's eyes and said seriously. The old prisoner nodded and said, "Leave it to me." Zhou Xuanji got up and was prepared to leave. "Master, remember one thing. You are a descendant of the founding lord. If anyone dares to threaten you, don't be afraid, and don't bow down." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed. He didn't know what kind of magic potion the founder master's bloodline had fed him. They were like brainless fans. Zhou Xuanji disappeared quickly. He returned to Star's Hall and took out the main emperor door. He was pleasantly surprised by the power of the main emperor's gate. He wanted to see if he could figure out the other uses of the main emperor's gate. Meanwhile, in the lawless region, within the dense fog, the three gigantic stone steels trembled slightly. The ancient voice that faced Zhou Xuanji previously came, "What a great sword emperor! That heaviness is indeed the power of the founding lord." Right after the voice spoke, the three stone steels stopped moving. They remained motionless and fell into silence. A while later. "The power of the founding lord. So the founder master's bloodline really exists," a hoarse voice said. Another voice came with a sinister laugh, "It's getting more and more interesting. The founder master's inheritance has been fighting for a long time, and now it's starting again. It's time for us to act." The ancient voice said, "Then send someone to support Gujuagio. Gujuagio thinks highly of himself. It's time for him to show off for a while." The words implied that Gujuagio was a chess piece. Arrogant. High and mighty. Boom, the Star's Hall trembled, and Zhou Xuanji immediately stored the main emperor door. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his expression was complicated. "It's too heavy. The Star's Hall can't bear it at all." Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He was curious about what kind of power the main emperor door was hiding. Or was the main emperor door made of extraordinary materials? He took a deep breath and temporarily gave up on his curiosity about the main emperor door. If this continued, it would not matter if he smashed through the star's hull, but he was afraid that he would destroy the star's domain below. He swung his right hand, which was a little numb. Just when he was about to return to his throne, a horrifying aura engulfed the star's domain. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. He recognized this aura. Gu Juejiao. That guy did not come to the star's domain but was fighting somewhere else. His majestic aura spread far and wide. Is he provoking me? Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile. His impression of Gu Juejiao was no longer as curious as before. This guy was just a brute. Other than Gu Juejiao's aura, he vaguely sensed the aura of a cardinal heaven. The two of them were fighting again. It was strange. Wasn't Gu Juejiao targeting him this time? How did he fight with a cardinal heaven? Could it be that a cardinal heaven thought that he was Gu Juejiao's target? Zhou Xuanji thought with a strange expression. Thinking about it, cardinal heaven did not seem so stupid. He was not inferior to Gu Juejiao in terms of arrogance. But he was smarter and more patient than Gu Juejiao. If Gu Juejiao was a cardinal heaven, he would never cooperate with Zhou Xuanji. He would only fight him to the death. This time, the pressure from the battle between Cardinal Heaven and Gu Juejiao was even stronger. Not only Zhou Xuanji could feel it, but all living beings could feel it. Zhou Xuanji returned to his throne and continued to cultivate. In the graveyard of gods, in a world of ice and snow, Shen Nianxing was sitting on the altar, motionless. She suddenly opened her eyes and asked softly, "Why are you back?" As soon as she spoke, another Shen Nianxing appeared in front of her. Looking down at her, Shen Nianxing asked faintly, "Do you want to go out?" The real Shen Nianxing was overjoyed and asked, "Can you resurrect me?" She was Shen Nianxing's soul, but her body had been occupied by her previous life. "Yes, I will return your body to you. After going out, go find Zhou Xuanji. I will pass the location to you through memory," Shen Nianxing said seriously. "From now on, I am Hongmeng Heaven and you are Shen Nianxing." Shen Nianxing was extremely excited. She finally didn't have to endure loneliness anymore. She came back to her senses and asked hesitantly, "Why are you doing this? Could it be that you are in trouble?" Hongmeng Heaven replied calmly, "Yes, not only me, but also the later ancient sovereign three heavens. I need to hide here to take refuge. Zhou Xuanji is the next Hongmeng Heaven, but he has a powerful backer. You can go and worship him." Shen Nianxing nodded. Her eyes were filled with excitement. When she thought of Zhou Xuanji, the look in her eyes became complicated. Chapter 10:14. The battle between Gu Juejiao and a Cardinal Heaven expert started once again and became the most attention-grabbing matter in the north. Now that Dong Wujin had retreated, the Sword Emperor Divine Court could finally relax. However, Zhou Xuanji gave the order to reinforce Cardinal Heaven experts at this critical moment. He did not mobilize all of his troops, only a portion of them that had yet to experience the endless battlefield. Gu Juejiao's target was him. He might even launch a surprise attack on the Sword Emperor Divine Court and the Myriad Stars domain. On this day, Zhou Xuanji once again explained the Tao to the Kunlun Origin Court. Every once in a while, he would help the people of the Kunlun Origin Court preach the Tao. With the help of the ancestral sound, the overall strength of the people of the Kunlun Origin Court was improving. The Kunlun Origin Court was his starting place. As the sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court, he had the responsibility to help the Kunlun Origin Court become stronger. In the future, he would restore the Kunlun Origin Court's former status. The origin of all worlds. The center of everything. The ancestral voice resounded throughout all the realms of the Kunlun Origin Court, and the number of creatures listening to it was incalculable. Everyone's souls were captivated and they fell into an epiphany. Inside the Hall of Stars, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. His soul was still preaching the ancestral voice to the people of the Kunlun origin court. He narrowed his eyes and the door opened. Mortal Supremacy and Shen Nianqing walked in. Zhou Xuanji noticed that they were holding hands. Something was wrong? Wait a minute. Something was wrong with Shen Nianqing's aura. He immediately widened his eyes and asked in confusion, "It's you? What about your past life?" Shen Nianqing was nervous and didn't dare to meet his gaze. She stammered, "She found me, and we exchanged identities. Now she stays in the graveyard of gods." Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He didn't expect Shen Nianqing to be so cowardly in her previous life. This also meant that the lawless region was truly terrifying. It was so powerful that even Hong Meng Tian had to hide. In addition, did the Hong Meng heaven curse she mentioned really exist? Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. Let her follow me from now on. Sovereign Hong Chen looked at Zhou Xuanji and said expectantly. He hoped that Zhou Xuanji could take Shen Nianqing in. Zhou Xuanji looked up, shook his head, and said with a smile, "What are you saying? You make it sound like I will reject her." He and Shen Nianqing did have conflicts in the graveyard of gods before, but he didn't take it to heart. "How about this, we'll build another palace next to yours. She'll continue to hold the position she held in her previous life. Since she's new here, you'll help her adapt." He looked at Shen Nianqing and asked, "Your body has changed, but what about your cultivation?" Shen Nianqing replied nervously, "My cultivation is still there, but my soul realm can't keep up. My strength is only half of what it used to be." Half was enough. Shen Nianqing has long established a reputation in the stars field. Zhou Xuanji smiled satisfactorily before waving his hand, signaling them to leave. Shen Nianqing wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she didn't say anything and left with Supreme Hongchen. Zhou Xuanji understood what she wanted to say. He could see the apology in her eyes. But he didn't take it to heart, so he didn't need her to apologize. "The higher you stand, the more afraid you are," Zhou Xuanji mumbled. He used to think that the post-primeval sovereign three heavens was the most powerful existence. Only now did he know that there was a lawless region above it. After he defeated Gu Juejiao, he would face the lawless area. Then, he closed his eyes and focused his attention on the Kunlun origin court. Boom! Cardinal Heaven and Gu Juejiao intertwined in the space-time turbulence. Their speed was extremely fast. They cast all kinds of divine abilities without relying on their hands and feet. They fought in close combat while bombarding each other with divine abilities. Gu Juejiao's face was hideous. His eyes were filled with madness. He held the saber with both hands, and the blade was surrounded by countless light of rules. Cardinal Heaven was holding the pagoda, dealing with every move. His expression was very calm. He looked at Gu Juejiao with ridicule in his eyes. "Junior, you threatened to kill me in half an hour. How long has it been?" Cardinal Heaven suddenly laughed, making Gu Juejiao even angrier. Gu Juejiao's target was Zhou Xuanji, but he was stopped by a Cardinal Heaven. This made him aggrieved and angry. "Cardinal Heaven, let me help you kill Zhou Xuanji, isn't it good?" Gu Juejiao said, gnashing his teeth. At the same time, he was very surprised. This guy is even stronger than last time. What's going on? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength before? Cardinal Heaven snorted coldly, "If he dies, I will have to face East Infinity and West Infinity. Am I that stupid?" Upon hearing this, Gu Juejiao's momentum soared. He had no choice but to go all out to kill a Cardinal Heaven expert. He had always claimed that he would surpass the late Prime 3 Heavens. If he couldn't defeat a Cardinal Heaven expert, it would be a slap to his face. Rumble! At this moment, the surrounding space-time turbulence suddenly erupted. Numerous gates of light appeared out of thin air and surrounded the two of them. They subconsciously stopped and distanced themselves from each other. "Who is it?" Gu Juejiao asked in a deep voice. Wherever he looked, the space-time currents were all annihilated. The Cardinal Heaven expert seemed to have sensed something and couldn't help but be moved. His eyes were filled with resentment. I can't. Yuan insects are still here, Zhi Zuantian said coldly. The word unable made Gu Juejiao's expression change drastically. As an endless overlord, how could Gu Juejiao not know the depth of the lawless region? Cardinal Heaven, you're trying to cultivate the path of extermination. That's a crime that can't be punished. I'll kill you today. An arrogant laughter rang out as boundless killing intent locked onto a Cardinal Heaven expert. Gu Juejiao's eyes flickered and he murmured, the Tao of extermination. I see. He suddenly looked at the Cardinal Heaven experts and raised his blade to slash again. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes suddenly and stood up. His aura is weakening. Why? He muttered to himself with a frown. He was referring to a Cardinal Heaven expert. Although a Cardinal Heaven expert was severely injured by the blood dragon ghost, his aura had never weakened so quickly before. What was happening? Zhou Xuanji immediately activated God-absent mode and prepared to check. Given the current situation, a Cardinal Heaven expert must not die. They had a common enemy. Once a Cardinal Heaven expert died, Zhou Xuanji would be surrounded by enemies. Not only would he be targeted by all sides, but the lawless region was also eyeing him. Just when he entered the space-time kaleidoscope, a figure stopped him. It was the old prisoner. Don't go. You will die, the old prisoner said solemnly. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, if I don't go, there will be more trouble later on. He had the fated fortune pearl and the Master Emperor's sect, so he was quite confident. The old prisoner shook his head and said, Cardinal Heaven experts are not simple. They won't die. Just wait patiently. After he said this, Zhou Xuanji's frown eased up. That's right. If a Cardinal Heaven expert could die so easily, he would not be so famous today. He rubbed his chin and asked, how do you think I should solve the current situation? The old prisoner smiled, wait. You are the descendant of the Founder Master. It will be too difficult for them to kill you. Wait? How long? Zhou Xuanji continued to ask. He had been studying the Fated Fortune Pearl and the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. But until now, he could not comprehend anything deeper. Somehow, he felt that he was still lacking a key. A key that could fully activate the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra. Chapter 10-15. I'm not sure. I've met a descendant of the primogenitor before. He was originally mediocre, but he suddenly erupted with talent and shocked the world. That person was Gu Zun's most respected opponent, but unfortunately, the heavens were jealous of his talent. He was surrounded by all the powers and died. The old prisoner said faintly, making Zhou Xuanji feel quite surprised. The person Gu Zun admired the most had also learned the scripture of creation. From his point of view, the founder had no descendants at all. There was only the inheritor of the scripture of creation that defied the constitution. He was lost in thought. All right, let's go back. He grabbed Zhou Xuanji's shoulder and brought him back to the star's domain. Zhou Xuanji returned to Star's palace alone, while the old prisoner returned to his cell to continue resting. Sitting on the throne, Zhou Xuanji once again used his soul to chant the ancestral voice for the Kunlun origin court. As he spoke, he took out 2 faded beads and continued to ponder. He didn't know how the descendant of the original master that the old prisoner mentioned had awakened. After awakening, how much faster would it be for him to become stronger? What if the old prisoner was only saying that the man had just learned the scripture of creation? Zhou Xuanji played with the 2 faded fate pearls, and his thoughts drifted further and further away. In less than a month, the news of the defeat of the Cardinal Heaven experts spread like wildfire in Beiwujin. According to the scouts, Cardinal Heaven was severely injured by Gu Juejiao and fled. He threatened to go to the southern region to find Hunyuan Heaven, and the 2 heavens joined forces to make a comeback. The news spread like wildfire. Even though Gu Juejiao was injured, he still sent a great army to invade the north. Everywhere he went, he was unrestrained. His target was the Sword Emperor Divine Court. After hearing about this, Zhou Xuanji wanted to curse the old prisoner. What happened to the Cardinal Heaven being fine? In the end, he ran away with his tail between his legs. Right now, only the Sword Emperor Divine Court was left in the northern Endless Lands. Zhou Xuanji would be the last line of northern Wujin's resistance. More and more experts and living beings joined the Sword Emperor Divine Court, wanting to put up a final resistance. Zhou Xuanji could no longer cultivate in peace. There were battle reports every day. He summoned the blood dragon ghost and sent it to the front line, but it could not stop Gujuagio's army. Gujuagio had not even acted personally. He could block the blood dragon ghost's savagery with just his powerful subordinates, which refreshed Zhou Xuanji's understanding of Shi Wujin's power. Western Boundless was much stronger than Eastern Boundless. It could also be said that Dong Wujin had yet to use his full strength. No matter what, Zhou Xuanji had to face the wrath of the ancient genius. Good times don't last long. Half a year after the defeat of the Cardinal Heaven experts, Gujuagio attacked the Myriad Stars domain. Zhou Xuanji. Release my son's soul, or I'll slaughter your divine court. Gujuagio's voice, which was filled with killing intent, resounded in the star field. Everyone was in an uproar. Countless figures soared into the air like stars in the sky, wishing to fight against the ancient geniuses. Gujuagio held two sabers in his hands and wore a bright red robe. His hair was disheveled and he looked like he was possessed by a devil. His aura was torrential, like a wave of fire spreading across the sky. That pressure enveloped the entire star's domain. Yuanqing flew up and looked at Gujuagio, his heart pounding. It's really him. Yuanqing's scalp went numb. The person in front of him was the strongest person in the world. Even a Cardinal Heaven expert was no match for him. How could they fight him? Meanwhile, inside the Hall of Stars, Zhou Xuanji held the two faded fate pearls in his hand, and his eyes sparkled. He had heard Gujuagio's voice. He slowly got up and prepared to leave the hall to face the enemy. At this moment, the two faded fortune pearls trembled, and a burst of light spread out, condensing into a figure. Zhou Xuanji looked up. Isn't that the Ancestor Lord? Although he still couldn't see the face clearly, he still remembered the figure. The faded fortune pearls contain the Ancestor Lord's will too? You can't go out. You will die, the Ancestor Lord's spirit said. Zhou Xuanji smiled and asked, do you really treat me as your descendant or disciple and want to help me? The Ancestor Lord's spirit shook his head and said, you don't need help. Don't need? Zhou Xuanji was confused and wanted to ask further. You are very powerful, but you have not realized it yet. It's time to use your serendipity, the Ancestor Lord's spirit said meaningfully. Zhou Xuanji raised the faded fortune pearls and asked curiously, how do I use it? The Ancestor Lord's spirit shook his head and said, it's not considered serendipity. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. There's a serendipity more powerful than the faded fortune pearls? Hold on. Zhou Xuanji's eyes were shocked. Could it be the supreme legendary sword system? He had always suspected that the serendipity of the world was the sovereign serendipity. Could it be true? Even to this day, the legend of the three great paragons' destiny still exists. Those who obtain the paragon's destiny will be able to control everything. The Ancestor Lord's spirit's words caused Zhou Xuanji to fall into silence. He had always been using the supreme legendary sword system. What else could he do? He looked up at the Ancestor Lord's spirit and asked with his eyes. You're already using it, but times are different now. I'm here to give you a hand. Get ready. The Ancestor Lord's spirit raised his right hand and cried out. Zhou Xuanji asked hesitantly, is it too late now? My enemy is just outside. The Ancestor Lord's spirit laughed loudly, your serendipity is the greatest serendipity. It surpasses everything, including time and the heavens and earth. After that, he flipped his palm down. The two faded fortune pearls exploded. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide. This exploded? At this moment, the light from the faded fortune pearl's explosion rushed into his body. His eyes immediately lost their color, and his body stiffly sat down. The ancestor Lord Spirit looked down at him and said faintly, "Perhaps you are his descendant." Whoosh, a cold wind blew, piercing into one's soul. Zhou Xuanji suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. He was shocked to find that he was sitting on the grass. In front of him was a large lake that sparkled. The lake was boundless, and the end was filled with fog. The sun could not be seen. It felt like a rainy day, but there was no rain. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and looked around before looking at himself. His eyes widened. "What's going on?" he cried out in a low voice. He did not look injured. His purple robe was clean and still looked noble and luxurious. But his body was gone. He was only left with his soul. Why was it like this? An out-of-body experience? Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath. He wanted to take out the faded fortune pearls, but he could not sense them. He called out to the ancestor Lord Spirit, but that fellow did not come out either. The only fortunate thing was that he could still control the supreme legendary sword system. He took out the suppressive legendary sword and stood up. His divine energy was gone, and his soul was weak as though it had been heavily injured. What is this place? What is the ancestor Lord Spirit trying to do? Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He turned around and saw a mountain forest that was still covered in fog. He wanted to fly but found that he could not. At this moment, he was like a mortal. He could not even use his divine will. The only thing he could use was the supreme legendary sword system. He walked toward the mountain forest to see what was hidden nearby. Suddenly, a silhouette appeared on the hill ahead. Passing through the fog, it was a 6-meter-tall black bull. There was a boy on the black bull, and he was holding onto a rope while picking his nose. Zhou Xuanji walked over and asked, "Boy, what is this place?" The boy looked at him and replied, "This is a mountain forest." Chapter 10:16. Zhou Xuanji looked at the cowherd boy and really wanted to beat him up. "I didn't know this was a forest. Where does this forest belong to?" Zhou Xuanji continued to ask. This scene reminded him of the graveyard of gods. At that time, Shen Nianxing had also conjured such a cowherd boy. Could it be that this kid wasn't simple? He couldn't use his spiritual will right now, so he couldn't see through cowherd boy. The cowherd boy picked his nose and said, "How would I know? If I knew, would I still be herding cows here?" His condescending expression made Zhou Xuanji's anger rise. With just 2 steps, Zhou Xuanji arrived beside the tall black bull. He raised his hand and pulling the cowherd boy down. Thump. The cowherd boy fell to the ground and his butt hurt. Wah! He burst into tears and sat on the ground, his legs swinging like a fish's tail. The tall black bull did not seem to have any intelligence. It continued to graze and ignored the cowherd boy and Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji put his hands on his waist and asked, "Brat, are you still going to be arrogant? You're bullying children. You're bullying a child." The cowherd boy cried non-stop. Zhou Xuanji shook his head. It seemed that he would not be able to understand even if he asked him. After thinking about it, Zhou Xuanji turned and left. He planned to pass through this forest to see if there were any places where living beings gathered. He couldn't use his divine power, and he couldn't fly either. He could only move forward on foot. When he was gone, the boy stopped crying. Where is he? The cowherd boy was confused. He turned around and saw that Zhou Xuanji was about to disappear into the fog. He hurriedly jumped onto the black bull's back and pulled the reins to make the black bull turn around. Zhou Xuanji recited the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra as he walked. However, the Constitution-defying Creation Sutra could not create divine power for him. What's going on? Zhou Xuanji frowned deeply. Was he in an illusion? All of this was too strange. Suddenly, he heard footsteps and glanced over. The black yak had actually caught up to him. Hey, don't walk around. It's very dangerous here. The cowherd boy picked his nose and shouted. He still had that infuriating expression on his face. Where is it dangerous? Zhou Xuanji asked. The cowherd boy said mysteriously, there are many terrifying beasts here. Without the protection of my divine cow, you will definitely be eaten. Berserk beast? Interesting. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He did not mind and continued to walk ahead. Hey, where did you come from? Why haven't I seen you before? Asked the cowherd boy. Zhou Xuanji looked at him condescendingly and said, there are many people you have not seen before. Is it very strange? That's right, I've seen everyone in the world, the cowherd boy said confidently. Zhou Xuanji sighed. It seemed that he had fallen into an illusion. Could this be the test of the primogenitor spirit? Is there a secret to awakening a fortuitous encounter in this illusion? At the thought of this, Zhou Xuanji braced himself and prepared to look around. Hey, do you want me to take you to our tribe? The cowherd boy continued to yell. Just as he finished speaking, a roar sounded. The fog was lifted, and a ferocious beast with a tiger's head and a dragon's body charged out. It was ready to devour the cowherd boy in one bite. Bang! The black yak suddenly stomped his foot, and a gust of wind wreaked havoc, sending the beast flying. The cowherd boy was still picking his nose, and he felt pain from the impact. He quickly retracted his hand and covered his nose. Zhou Xuanji sized up the black yak. He did not expect it to be so powerful just by stomping its foot. Kid, what's your name? What breed is your yak? Zhou Xuanji asked. The cowherd boy replied, my name is Kunlun. I don't know what breed it is, but I call it a god. I saved it when I was young, and since then, it has been with me. Kunlun? God? Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion, when you were young? Aren't you young now? The cowherd boy waved his hand and snorted, what are you talking about? I've already lived for 2,000 years. Back then, when I saved it, it was still a little cub. 2,000 years? Zhou Xuanji was stunned, and his expression was strange. His name was Kunlun, could he be the primogenitor spirit? Could it be that the primogenitor spirit brought him to the beginning of the Kunlun origin court? All of this was the primogenitor spirit's memories? Zhou Xuanji sized up the cowherd boy and felt that it was nonsense. How did this brat look like the primogenitor spirit? Hey, what's with that look? The cowherd boy cried out. He could sense the disdain. Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile, before you were born, there was nothing, right? The cowherd boy curled his lip and said, what? Of course there was. The Creator told us that there was a great era before us. There were countless worlds and races, but they were all destroyed. Zhou Xuanji was stunned again. What was that? The Creator? The cowherd boy waved his hand and said, come with me. Let's meet our human king. The black bull walked ahead, and Zhou Xuanji followed immediately. What's the human king? Could it be that the Kunlun origin court had an even longer history? Zhou Xuanji was very curious and interested. He could not escape anyway, so he might as well look at this world. Along the way, Kunlun began telling Zhou Xuanji about their tribe. There were 1,320 people in their tribe. Every once in a while, someone would be devoured by a ferocious beast. The oldest person had lived for 100,000 years. How big is this world? Zhou Xuanji asked. Kunlun shook his head and said, I'm not sure. We can only stay here. The Creator said that it's very dangerous outside. We can't even conquer this forest, let alone leave. Zhou Xuanji asked further, have you seen the Creator before? Kunlun shook his head again and replied, he has not appeared for 10,000 years, 10,000 years? Zhou Xuanji became even more curious about their tribe. They walked for about 6 hours. They finally arrived at the tribe. This tribe was very similar to the primitive tribes that Zhou Xuanji knew of. The entire mountain was covered with wooden houses made of trees and small fortresses made of stones. Zhou Xuanji's expression became strange. The corner of his mouth twitched. He raised his hand to his forehead and sighed. The people in the tribe were all children. They did not look more than 10 years old, but they had different physiques. There were both males and females. Hey, hey, hey. Come and see, I brought someone back. He's different from us. Kunlun waved his hand and cried out. More and more people turned to look at them. Wow. He's as tall as the creator. Who is he? Be careful. He might be transformed from a ferocious beast. Kunlun, can he be trusted? The people were very nervous and did not dare to get close. Kunlun smiled and said, he has no ill intentions. I can sense that he's very kind. Zhou Xuanji looked at him in astonishment. Was this brat boasting or did he have some special ability? How come I don't know that I'm kind? At this moment, a silhouette walked out from the crowd. He still had the appearance and physique of a child, but he was bent over with a wooden stick in his hand. He looked like a little old man. He's our human king, Kunlun pointed at that person and said. Kunlun pointed at that person and said with a face full of worship. Chapter 10:17. Outsider, come here. I have something to ask you. The human king stared at Zhou Xuanji and said casually. His eyes were calm, but Zhou Xuanji sensed a great threat from him. What's going on? This guy is giving me the same pressure as a cardinal heaven cultivator? Zhou Xuanji was shocked in his heart. He nodded and walked forward. Kunlun leaped down from the black bull and followed closely behind Zhou Xuanji. After entering the tribe, the crowd split into 2 rows and made way for them. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji was the center of attention. He observed secretly. Many people here gave him a sense of danger. What's going on? They were just a bunch of immature children. Why did they give him a sense of danger? Could it be that the first batch of living beings were all this powerful? It made sense. He could not fly in the environment here. To be able to survive here, their bodies must be powerful. Not right. Zhou Xuanji frowned suddenly. He almost forgot that he was a soul now. Then these people, he observed carefully and was even more shocked. These people were souls too. But they were in a special environment. The contact between the souls was like physical contact. It was very magical. Zhou Xuanji thought about it as he followed the human king to the largest fortress in the tribe. The human king walked to a chair covered in beast skin and sat down. He sized Zhou Xuanji up and asked, "Who are you? Where are you from?" Zhou Xuanji replied, "I lost my memory. I want to understand this world. I have no ill intentions toward you. If possible, I also want to meet the creator you speak of." The human king frowned and fell into deep thought. Dozens of children stood in the house. All of them held various weapons and looked at Zhou Xuanji warily. Zhou Xuanji felt like he had entered a kindergarten by mistake. Kunlun said, "This guy is very powerful. When he dragged me down from the god's body, his speed was unbelievably fast. I have never seen such speed before. Even with such speed, he did not hurt me." Zhou Xuanji glanced at him. So this kid was pretending to cry. The human king looked up at Zhou Xuanji and asked, "Why do you want to meet the creator?" Zhou Xuanji shrugged and said, "I'm just curious. I heard from Kunlun that the creator knows everything about the past. He did not know what to do here. But since he heard about the creator, it meant that the creator played an important role in the illusion. Perhaps he could find out the intentions of the spirit of the First Lord through the creator. The creator hasn't appeared in a long time. You should stay in the tribe for now." The human king instructed, and Zhou Xuanji had no objections. He wanted to understand these people. And so, Zhou Xuanji stayed here. He began to observe these children every day. He really wanted to know why these people maintained the appearance of children. He started with their diet and found that everything they ate was harmless, and the water they drank was also very pure. Kunlun became his little attendant and followed him all day. Zhou Xuanji discovered a secret. The people of this tribe did not know how to reproduce. They had no parents, no brothers and sisters, and no children. They are the fruit of a tree. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji was looking at this tree. The tree was 30 meters tall and looked quite ordinary. There were many green fruits on it, some of which had already grown into humanoid shapes. Zhou Xuanji thought of the ginseng fruit in the journey to the west. Kunlun said nervously, "Don't be rash. The master of creation once said that this source tree is our foundation. Once the source tree is gone, our tribe will also perish." Source tree? Zhou Xuanji rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. It seemed that the master of creation was the progenitor master. He created humans and all living beings. He established the Kunlun origin court and established the definition of everything. Perhaps even the sovereign serendipity was created by the progenitor master. But why did such an omnipotent progenitor master fall? Could it be that the progenitor master wanted him to see how the progenitor master died? There's another possibility. The progenitor master did not die. He turned into the sovereign serendipity and existed in this world forever. Zhou Xuanji came up with such a guess. Being invincible for a long time would get boring, and a permanent boredom would cause one to collapse. Kunlun pulled him and said, "It's time to go. This is a forbidden ground. We can't stay here for long." Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "Since it's so important, why don't you send someone to guard it? The source tree is very powerful. No ferocious beast dares to approach it. But your background is mysterious, so I'm a little worried," Kunlun explained. Zhou Xuanji became even more curious about the source tree. But he had no divine will to analyze the source tree. After a while, he left with Kunlun. "Is there really only one tribe in this world? Have you ever seen an adult like me?" Zhou Xuanji asked as he walked. He could not sense the spiritual qi here and could not cultivate. So, he was curious if there were other living beings that had taken human form. "No. You are the first," Kunlun replied. He began to pick his nose with an infuriating expression. Zhou Xuanji felt helpless. They could not cultivate or reproduce. What was the point of living in this tribe? Maybe the progenitor master was also looking for an answer, which was why he had not returned for so long. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Xuanji stayed in this tribe for decades. Because he could not cultivate, he began to train his physique. It was strange. He was a soul, but he could strengthen his soul by training his physique. Gradually, his soul force also grew stronger. What was worth mentioning was that his strange behavior attracted many children to imitate him. When those children grew stronger, they attracted the attention of the human kings. After some discussion, Zhou Xuanji became the first martial master in the tribe and taught everyone to grow stronger. As long as they were powerful enough, they would not have to worry about the attacks of ferocious beasts. Zhou Xuanji was bored of staying here. He was prepared to explore the world. Perhaps he could meet the creator outside. Kunlun heard about it and wanted to follow, but Zhou Xuanji rejected him. He could only watch Zhou Xuanji leave reluctantly. Entering the misty forest again, Zhou Xuanji took out his suppressive legendary sword to guard against the attacks of ferocious beasts. "Who are you?" A voice came and stopped Zhou Xuanji in shock. He turned around but could not locate the person. Right at this moment, a black-clothed man appeared in front of him out of thin air. This person had a cold face and purple pupils. His black hair draped over his shoulders casually, and he held a sword in his hand. Zhou Xuanji sized him up and asked curiously, "You are the creator?" This guy had the body of an adult, and he was dressed differently from the tribe. His appearance made Zhou Xuanji doubt everything. Could it be that the tribe was deceived? Actually, there were others. "You can say that I did not create you. How did you appear?" The man in black asked with a frown. He sized up Zhou Xuanji, and his eyes fell on the suppressive legendary sword. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. He raised his sword and stabbed at Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 10:18. Clang. Zhou Xuanji raised his mighty legendary sword to block the black-robed man's sword. There was a loud bang. The ground collapsed, and Zhou Xuanji was sent flying backward. Chunks of earth and rocks crumbled, trees were uprooted, and the wind howled and raged. Zhou Xuanji somersaulted a few times in the air and landed steadily. He looked up and saw the black-clothed man flying up. Zhou Xuanji opened his mouth slightly. Numerous swords of light appeared behind the man in black, and they were all pointed at Zhou Xuanji. "Brother, is there a need to make such a big scene?" Zhou Xuanji asked helplessly. How could this guy fly? Could it be that his cultivation far surpassed his own? It seemed that the no-fly rule here was not absolute. The black-clothed man stared at him and said coldly, "You are a deviant and must be eradicated." Boom! 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 All the swords of light shot toward Zhou Xuanji. They were so powerful that they swept up the fog. Zhou Xuanji immediately swung his sword. Even though he did not have divine energy, he had a sword, which was enough for him to use many divine abilities of the way of the sword. This sword slashed out, and the sword chi was like a crescent moon that swept out. It rapidly grew stronger and destroyed all the light swords. The man in black was moved, and he asked in a low voice, "Who exactly are you? Why do you know the Supreme Tao?" Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked curiously, "What's that?" "The Supreme Tao?" A casual swing of his sword was a Supreme Tao. "This world is my heart and lungs. Why do you want to barge in? This doesn't conform to the rules. If news of this spread to the Sword Emperor, you wouldn't be able to justify yourself." The man in black said coldly. His face was ashen and his eyes were filled with anger. Zhou Xuanji could clearly sense that his murderous intent had subsided. "Sword Emperor? I'm the Sword Emperor, who are you talking about?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He was even more certain that this was an illusion. It seemed like it wasn't the progenitor lord's memories. Instead, it was a brand new illusion. The man in black was furious. Without a word, he swung his sword wildly. Countless sword shadows inundated Zhou Xuanji from all directions. "This is primordial chaos sword shadow?" Zhou Xuanji's expression was strange. He began guessing as he dodged. Could that Sword Emperor really be him? The purpose of this illusion was for him to defeat himself and awaken. Zhou Xuanji leaped quickly and dodged the sword shadows one after another. This part of the forest was bombarded. Dust flew everywhere and gravel flew everywhere. Heaven and earth collapsed, as if doomsday had arrived. The distant tribes could also hear it. Kunlun stood on a huge rock and looked into the distance with a frown. He was worried about Zhou Xuanji, but he felt that Zhou Xuanji was very powerful and should be fine. The children in the tribe came out one after another and began to discuss among themselves. Did the berserk beasts go berserk again? Something's wrong. There's a dangerous aura in the air. What happened? Should we go and take a look? What are you looking at? What if you die? The creator said that death is very scary. The human king squeezed out of the crowd with a complicated expression. The other side. Zhou Xuanji rushed into the depths of the mountain forest to avoid affecting the children's tribe. Although he felt that this might be an illusion, he was afraid that it was real. The black-clothed man became even more furious, and his speed suddenly increased. Zhou Xuanji could not sense his aura, and he instinctively took out hundreds of legendary swords. He used his heart to control the swords, blocking the attacks from all directions. Ding! 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 The sword shadows were all dispersed by the divine sword. The black-robed man's eyes widened. These swords, the black-robed man was shocked. He immediately decided to use his strongest sword technique to defeat this fellow. If this were to continue, his heart and lungs would be destroyed. He held his sword with both hands and held it vertically in front of him. His eyes turned extremely sharp. A strange silver radiance emanated from the surface of his body. This is, Zhou Xuanji squinted his eyes with an odd expression. Sword Emperor extinction? Annihilation judgment? He immediately had a bad premonition. The black-robed man slashed with his sword suddenly. Zhou Xuanji activated the sword fusion technique instinctively. All the legendary swords fused into his soul. He tried to block with his arms in front of his chest. He took a step forward and was prepared to block and dodge at the same time. A stream of sword light flashed past. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes. Boom! He lost consciousness in an instant and fell into absolute darkness. Zhou Xuanji had a dream. He dreamed that he was challenging himself. More accurately, he was challenging the identity of the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor looked exactly like him. He was the most powerful cultivator in the world and ruled over everything. He, who didn't have any divine power, couldn't even put up a fight against the Sword Emperor. In the end, he was killed by the Sword Emperor unwillingly. He woke up with a start. When he opened his eyes again, he realized that he was lying in a gigantic cage. He had a splitting headache. He propped up his forehead as he sat up. This is, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He realized that there were dozens of people around him. The gigantic cage was very tall and looked like a gigantic birdcage. Outside the birdcage was a boundless blue sky. There were few clouds and mist, and nothing else could be seen. The metal pillars at the edge of the cage were a meter apart. It was easy for an ordinary person to walk out, but everyone here looked numb and hopeless. No one thought of escaping. Could it be that there was danger outside? Zhou Xuanji looked around and locked his gaze on a man in the corner. Everyone was either lying down or sitting paralyzed. Only he was meditating and cultivating. Zhou Xuanji walked up to him and squatted down. "What is this place?" he asked softly. The man did not reply. He was wearing a tattered robe. His hair was very short, and his face was cold. He was quite skinny. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked again, "How long have you been here?" The man still did not reply. He was like a statue and did not even breathe. Zhou Xuanji got up and could only give up. He walked to the edge of the cage and hesitated whether he should step out. His soul was very weak now. If there was any danger, his soul might dissipate. "Don't go out, you will die," a weak voice came. Zhou Xuanji looked back and saw a skinny old man lying on the ground. He had deep dark circles around his eyes and looked incredibly haggard. Zhou Xuanji looked at him and asked, "What is this place?" "This is the Emperor's cage. It's used to store food." The old man replied. His breathing was very weak and could stop at any moment. Emperor's cage? Zhou Xuanji frowned. He had never heard of this name in the children's tribe. "Whose food?" Zhou Xuanji asked. The old man looked terrified. His body began to tremble as he said, "Food for the Emperor's pets." Zhou Xuanji frowned again. Pets. He looked back and saw that under the blue sky were endless clouds. He could not see the ground or the ocean. Rumble, at that moment, the Emperor's cage violently shook, and a wild gale blew. Zhou Xuanji and the other prisoners could not withstand it and were sent flying. They crashed into the bars, and in that instant, a terrifying electric current wrapped around their bodies. Zhou Xuanji almost fainted from the electric shock. Such pain, it felt so real. Only after a while did the wild gale stop. Zhou Xuanji landed on the ground. He wanted to stand up, but he could not. A voice came from outside the cage. "You're talking about him? He knows the Supreme Tao." Chapter 10:19. After hearing the noise, Zhou Xuanji looked out of the cage. Two majestic giants appeared outside the cage. One of them was the man in black who fought with Zhou Xuanji before. He was holding the Emperor's palm cage. The other person had thick eyebrows and a long beard. He had brown eyes, wore a bone crown, and wore a green robe. He was sizing up Zhou Xuanji. It was the first time someone had sized Zhou Xuanji up like this. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you people? What do you want to do to me?" Without divine power, without divine will, it was truly depressing. Even though this might be an illusion, the rage in Zhou Xuanji's heart grew uncontrollably. Once he recovered his cultivation, he would definitely let these two fellows experience terror. "Oh, you're quite stubborn. It seems like you're full of vigor." The green-robed man nodded in satisfaction and smiled while stroking his beard. Zhou Xuanji frowned. The black-clothed man glanced at him and then said to the green-clothed man, "It seems that you like it quite a bit. I want 300 people. Is that too much?" The green-robed man frowned and snorted, 300? You think too highly of him. This guy is not weak. I don't care. 200 at most. Since that's the case, I'll have to change my target. You, seeing the two of them haggle, Zhou Xuanji felt angry but also speechless. What kind of world was this? Traitor? Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and sat down. He had to remain calm. The primogenitor's spirit definitely didn't bring him here just to make things difficult for him. There must be a special purpose. It must have something to do with the scripture of creation. However, during this period of time, he often chanted the constitution-defying creation scripture, but the ancestral sound seemed to be useless and did not help him at all. Zhou Xuanji once again recited the constitution-defying creation sutra in his heart. He could take this opportunity to calm himself down. The more adverse the situation was, the more they couldn't afford to be chaotic. The black-robed man and the green-robed man were still bargaining, completely ignoring everyone in the cage. The others weren't shocked either. They were all lying on the ground, either sleeping or shivering. They were already used to it. After a while, the man in black came to an agreement and sent Zhou Xuanji away with 260 people. The man in green grabbed Zhou Xuanji with his right hand. Zhou Xuanji sunk into darkness, but he continued to meditate and chant scriptures. The constitution-defying creation sutra did not have any effect. After an unknown period of time, the darkness dispersed. The green-clothed man opened his palm and placed him into another monarch's palm cage. There was no one else in the cage. Zhou Xuanji fell into it, flipped himself up, and continued to meditate. "Still cultivating?" the green-robed man asked with a smile. Zhou Xuanji asked back, "Who are you, and who do you work for?" The green-robed man smiled and said, "We are primogenitor masters, and we work for the Sword Emperor. From your appearance, you should be a mediocre primogenitor master." Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji frowned. Was there really a progenitor? Then what about the Sword Emperor? In the end, you're still not good enough. Just wait for my baby to eat you up. The green-robed man smiled and disappeared after he finished speaking. Zhou Xuanji sat on the ground and continued to think. He really wanted to know what this world was like. At this time, a figure appeared in front of him. It was the primogenitor's spirit. Seeing him, Zhou Xuanji immediately became excited. What does all of this mean? Zhou Xuanji asked calmly as he tried to control his emotions. The primogenitor's spirit said calmly, "There is no such thing as the Kunlun origin court in the boundless universe. There is no divine energy, no flesh, and no divine sense. Living beings only exist as souls, and the destruction of their souls means complete death. In such an environment, the souls of living beings are far more powerful than those of the future." Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked further, "You're not the only primogenitor master? Then who is the Sword Emperor?" He had always wanted to be the most powerful Sword Emperor, but he did not expect there to be another Sword Emperor before the primogenitor master. The primogenitor master's spirit was silent. "Why did you want me to come here? How can I go back?" Zhou Xuanji asked. The primogenitor master's spirit shook his head and said, "I didn't bring you here. It's serendipity. Remember, you must live on. If you die here, your body will die too. Zhou Xuanji frowned even more. It would affect his body in the real world? If you can go back alive, you will return to the time when your soul left. Whether you can resolve the crisis depends on yourself. After the primogenitor master's spirit said this, he disappeared. Remember, find serendipity, find the meaning of your life. Zhou Xuanji's head hurt. This guy's words were as good as not saying anything. Now, it seemed that he had to find a way to survive. This was not as simple as an illusion. According to the primogenitor master's spirit, could the serendipity be for him to strengthen his soul? The soul was the foundation of all living beings. If the body was destroyed, it could be rebuilt. But if the soul was destroyed, it would cease to exist. He could not completely dissect the constitution-defying Creation Sutra. Could it be because his soul was not powerful enough? At the thought of this, Zhou Xuanji got up and began training his soul. Since he could not escape, he might as well become more powerful. He took out the suppressive legendary sword and practiced the white crane sword technique. As he trained, he looked out of the cage. Far away, there was a majestic mountain with green mountains and clear waters. A waterfall flowed down from the center of the mountain, looking majestic. On the other side was a boundless ocean. The waves glowed with a silver light and stretched endlessly. The emperor's cage that he was in seemed to be hanging on a tree. After that, he focused on training his sword. The green-robed man did not return. In the blink of an eye. Dozens of years passed. Zhou Xuanji's soul grew stronger. At the same time, he discovered a pleasant surprise. The supreme legendary sword system would remind him of his age every year. At the same time, he could draw a prize. But most legendary swords could not save him now. He was overwhelmed with emotions. The longer he lived here, the more legendary swords he obtained, and the more powerful he would be. Zhou Xuanji's mindset began to change. He treated everything here as serendipity. About 100 years later, the green-robed man returned. On his shoulder was a four-clawed dragon covered in red scales. The red-scaled dragon stared at Zhou Xuanji with hunger in its eyes. Zhou Xuanji understood that danger was coming again. The green-robed man opened the cage door and said with a smile, "You must have waited for a long time. I'm kind to let you live for so many years. Don't resist. Let my baby eat you. It doesn't like its prey to resist." Zhou Xuanji was expressionless. The green-robed man raised his arm, and the red-scaled dragon crawled toward the emperor's cage along his arm. It sped up suddenly and charged toward Zhou Xuanji with its mouth wide open. Boom! Zhou Xuanji's body radiated with a silver radiance. He activated the sword fusion technique, and his aura reached its peak. A silver longsword materialized in his right hand. Annihilation Judgment. He slashed with his sword, and the sword flashed. The red-scaled dragon was struck by the sword chi and flew backward. Countless dragon scales flew away. Zhou Xuanji was shocked. Even this could not kill it? What kind of existence was this guy? The red-scaled dragon steadied itself and charged toward Zhou Xuanji again. Chapter 10:20. Facing the ferocious red-scaled dragon, Zhou Xuanji advanced instead of retreating and sprinted toward it. The green-robed man did not stop him but watched the battle with interest. Zhou Xuanji charged out of the emperor's cage and came up to the red-scaled dragon in an instant. He slashed with his sword. Another annihilation judgment. It was even more powerful than before. It was so fast that the red-scaled dragon could not dodge in time and was sent flying back. In the past 100 years, Zhou Xuanji had been cultivating diligently. His soul was much more powerful than before. Moreover, this red-scaled dragon was not as powerful as its master. Zhou Xuanji swung his sword quickly, and waves of annihilation judgment slammed into the red-scaled dragon. The red-scaled dragon roared in pain. He looked up at the green-robed man and said, "Your treasures should be useful, or else they would not all have emperor's cages. I'll replace this dragon. How about it?" The black-robed man also had an emperor's cage. From their conversation, Zhou Xuanji's food could attract other primordial lords. This meant that their pets had special uses. The green-robed man smiled, indeed. If you can kill it, you can replace it. Zhou Xuanji heard him and became much more confident. No matter what, he had to survive first. As long as he had time, he would be more powerful than the green-robed man and regain his freedom. Under his ferocious attacks, the red-scaled dragon could not hold on at all. Soon, the red-scaled dragon was slain by Zhou Xuanji. Its soul exploded and was completely annihilated. Zhou Xuanji sheathed his sword and looked up at the green-robed man. What's its use? The green-robed man replied, every primogenitor lord will nurture a primogenitor pet. Through the battle between the primogenitor pets, the ownership of the new heart and lungs will be decided. The heart and lungs is a world of heaven and earth. Because we confuse it into our soul bodies, the Sword Emperor named it Heart and Lungs. Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion, every new world will trigger a battle between all the primordial beasts? Yes. But the creation of a new world requires time, and it depends on the Sword Emperor's will. There are only 81 primordial lords in total. Even if all of them fight, it will not take too long, the green-robed man said with a smile. He suddenly shrunk. More accurately, Zhou Xuanji was growing bigger. Zhou Xuanji could clearly sense a wave of energy entering his soul, causing it to expand. Soon, he became as big as the green-robed man. He landed on the ground and was surrounded by grass. There was a large tree next to him, and there was a cage hanging from the tree. It was the Emperor's cage. In the future, you can call me Master. My title is Green Pine Founding Master. This world is one of my hearts and lungs. You can stay here. Remember, don't run around. This world can give birth to powerful existences. After all of this was created by the Sword Emperor. The green-robed man looked at Zhou Xuanji and smiled. After that, he disappeared. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. That's it? Founder Green Pine Tree had trusted him too easily. Was it because this fellow was too strong and looked down on everyone? Or was it because the primogenitor of this era didn't have any schemes? Zhou Xuanji did not think too much about it and began training with his sword. As for this world, he was not in the mood to explore it for now. He just wanted to work hard to become stronger. He wanted to get rid of the founder of Green Pine Tree as soon as possible and then go out to take a look. What was the beginning of the Kunlun origin court like? He was looking forward to it. A palace hovered above the sea of clouds. Dozens of people were gathered in the hall, including Green Pine Sect's founder and the black-robed man. They were chatting and laughing as they stood. There was a sword on the stairs at the side. It was 30 meters tall. Other than being bright, there was nothing special about it. At the corner, a young man sat alone. He had a delicate face and was dressed in white like a scholar. His hands hung by his side and were motionless, as though he was lost in thought. Founder Green Pine Tree walked up to him and smiled. Yuan Xian, what are you thinking about? Why don't you talk to your brothers? Yuan Xian came back to his senses. He looked up and replied, I'm thinking if the existence of the primogenitor pet is a mistake. Founder Green Pine Tree looked doubtful. He touched Yuan Xian's forehead and smiled. Are you stupid? What's wrong with the primogenitor pet? Even the Sword Emperor has no objections. Yuan Xian sighed and said, I look at the living beings in my heart and lungs. I can't bear to nurture the primogenitor pet. They are all living beings. Other than being weaker than us, they are no different from us. Founder Green Pine Tree's face turned dark and snorted, they are not worthy to be compared to us. He turned around and left, no longer caring about Yuan Xian. Yuan Xian continued to think on the spot. He did not notice that the other primogenitor lords were looking at him differently. They were all filled with hostility. After a while, a tall and sturdy figure appeared in front of the giant sword. He wore a black robe with dragon shoulders. His face was like a tiger and there were two giant swords on his back. Greetings, great primogenitor lord. All the primogenitor lords bowed in unison. Great primogenitor lord nodded and said, the Sword Emperor has opened up another world. Whoever wants it to be their heart and lungs can participate in the battle. This time, I will be the host. Hearing this, the primogenitor lords were moved. The black-robed man asked, where is the Sword Emperor? Why didn't he come this time? Great primogenitor lord looked at him coldly and said, am I not qualified? The black-robed man was silent. The other primogenitor lord's expressions changed. There has to be a reason, right? A primogenitor lord hesitated and asked. Great primogenitor lord answered, the Sword Emperor told me that he wants to go into seclusion. It might be related to the rules he mentioned a long time ago. Rules? The primogenitor lords were stunned. Yuan Xian's eyes lit up and he asked, rules that can connect all hearts and lungs together and allow all beings to be like us? Great primogenitor lord frowned and slowly nodded. Immediately, the atmosphere in the palace became silent. Go and prepare. Wait for my notice, the battle of hearts and lungs might begin at any moment. Great primogenitor lord said as he waved his sleeves. After that, he disappeared. The primogenitor lords did not continue chatting and disappeared without saying a word. Soon, only Yuan Xian was left in the palace. Yuan Xian walked in front of the massive sword and knelt down. His face was filled with worry as he muttered, Sword Emperor, what's the point of creating all of this? He fell into a daze. What do you think the point is? A voice came from within the sword, causing him to look up in shock. He said with a trembling voice, Sword Emperor, while the primogenitor lords were worrying about the Sword Emperor going into seclusion, Zhou Xuanji was still diligently cultivating. He found that with the birth of his soul, his way of the sword was also improving. He could actually use the profoundness of annihilation judgment with the ordinary white crane sword technique. He felt quite excited. Annihilation judgment was a fusion of his divine abilities and contained terrifying destructive power. If he could use annihilation judgment while using sword moves, his power would increase by leaps and bounds. Before, when he used annihilation judgment, his body could not move too much and he needed to accumulate power. Moreover, he could not continuously use annihilation judgment in a short period of time. Now that he did not have divine energy, he could improve annihilation judgment. How could he not be happy? Chapter 10:21. Zhou Xuanji sat on the ground beside the azure lake. He sat on the ground, but his hands did not stop. He quickly brandished his sword, and the blade slashed through the air, creating dazzling sword shadows. He was so focused on his sword practice that he didn't notice a figure appearing behind him. Founding Master Green Pine. He silently stared at Zhou Xuanji with some amazement in his eyes. That lad truly knows the Tao of the utmost Tao. To think that even I can't understand a sword Tao as such. Green Pine Sect's founder master was secretly alarmed, and his killing intent rose. Should such a person be killed? But when he remembered that Zhou Xuanji was already his primal pet and that the fight for his heart was coming soon, he could only endure it. Forget it, I'll kill him after the battle of the heart and lungs is over. Ancestor Green Pine thought to himself before disappearing from his original spot. From beginning to end, he did not disturb Zhou Xuanji at all. He did not know that Zhou Xuanji already knew of his arrival, but he did not turn around. After the founder of Green Pine Tree left, he slowly opened his eyes. You're still not smart enough. Zhou Xuanji smirked. Perhaps it was because these progenitor masters had not gone through any hardships. In the future, it would have been difficult for Zhou Xuanji to survive. After all, he was already a threat to the founding master of Green Pine Tree. The gap between the two of them was not so big that the founding master of Green Pine Tree would be conceited. Looks like a new world has appeared and these primogenitor masters are preparing to fight over it, so he held back his killing intent, Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. Although primogenitor Green Pine had suppressed his killing intent, he was extremely sensitive to it. Even if it was just a trace, he would be able to sense it. Having lived for so long, he was used to seeing killing intent. He didn't have much time left. He had to become as strong as possible. The battle of the heart and lungs would be his chance to escape. After thinking about it, Zhou Xuanji got up and focused on cultivating the way of the sword. Clouds covered the sky. In the children's tribe, Kunlun stood in front of the gate of the tribe, gazing at the horizon, lost in thought. His divine bull walked to his side and squatted down like a small mountain for him to lean on. God, where do you think he went? Why isn't he back yet? Kunlun said worriedly. Although he had only known Zhou Xuanji for half a year, Zhou Xuanji's wit and knowledge made him feel a sense of admiration. He had been looking forward to Zhou Xuanji's return, but he had not seen him even after waiting for 100 years. Everyone in the tribe said that Zhou Xuanji was dead, but he did not believe it. God nudged him gently to comfort him. At this moment, a voice entered Kunlun's ears. The person you want to see has been captured. Do you want to save him? Kunlun stilled and suddenly stood up. Who? He asked nervously. The other party did not appear, but his voice was clearly transmitted into his ears. Could it be the Creator? Listen, if you want to save him, there is only one way. Next, the one who created everything will descend upon your tribe. You have to say this. Kunlun listened with trepidation. She listened very seriously. Boom! Zhou Xuanji slashed out with his sword, and sword chi swept out, shattering a massive mountain that reached into the clouds 1,000 kilometers away. A violent gale blew, and a dragon-like chi flow swept across the sky. He turned around and swung his sword again, splitting the earth and splitting the forest in half. Dust flew everywhere and the forest overturned. He stopped and sheathed his sword. Not bad. You can release and retract freely, and the Tao is hidden in your heart. Zhou Xuanji smiled satisfactorily. He could now use annihilation judgment perfectly. No matter how strong or weak it was, he could use it like divine energy. His strength had increased significantly. However, compared to the original owner, there was still a huge gap. Most importantly, he still did not know the true strength of the original owner. He turned around and returned to his temporary wooden hut. He sat on the wooden chair and began to reflect on his improvement. You are not panicking at all. A soft laughter came. Zhou Xuanji glanced over and saw a lady a few meters away. She was wearing a blue dress and had a beautiful face. She wore a silver crown on her head and had a saintly aura. She looked at him with a mocking gaze. Zhou Xuanji sized her up and asked, "Original owner?" The lady in blue shook her head. Then who are you? I'm the daughter of the Sword Emperor. Zhou Xuanji felt strange. Every time he heard the word Sword Emperor, he felt that it was referring to him. Why are you looking for me? Zhou Xuanji asked. The lady in blue stared at him and said, to overthrow the original owner. Zhou Xuanji frowned in surprise. Wasn't the original owner created by the Sword Emperor? Why did he want to overthrow him? The lady in blue walked over to him and looked down at him as she said, My godfather created the original owner and opened up the world, giving him boundless virtue. However, he was very confused and did not know how to establish the rules of the world he created. He created the original owners and controlled the various worlds, but he found that things were not as he had imagined. The original owners treated the creatures of the various worlds as playthings, making it so that the various worlds did not have any breakthroughs. Speaking to there, she stopped. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, The Sword Emperor can just destroy them, why would he need you to sneak around? Because of love, my godfather viewed them as his children and did not want to kill them. As such, we have to do this. Once we tear apart the original owner's disguise, my godfather will be able to see their true faces, the lady in blue replied seriously. Zhou Xuanji could not help but feel disdainful. This Sword Emperor was too indecisive. No wonder he was going to be replaced by the original owners. In the boundless universe, the highest legend was the original owners. As for the Sword Emperor, that was Zhou Xuanji. There were no legends older than the original owners. It seemed that the Sword Emperor was going to be killed by the original owners. As for the daughter of the Sword Emperor, she would not have a good ending either. The lady in blue frowned and asked, "What's with your attitude?" She saw the disdain in the depths of Zhou Xuanji's eyes. "What do you want me to do?" Zhou Xuanji asked. "It's very simple. As the original pet, you should be in a lot of pain. You can complain to the Sword Emperor. Not only him, but the other original pets and creatures have also been arranged by us. We just need to expose them," the lady in blue said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. Such a big plan? Were the original owners idiots? Did they not sense anything at all? The original owners are content to enjoy themselves and often gather together. They rarely manage their own worlds. You should have sensed this, the lady in blue said as she shook her head. When she mentioned this, she looked disappointed that Zhou Xuanji did not live up to her expectations. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "All right, I will cooperate." The lady in blue smiled, looking incredibly beautiful. Zhou Xuanji felt a little dazed. Why did he feel that this lady was somewhat similar to Zhou Shaoxian? "Your way of the sword is very outstanding. My elder brother is very interested in you. Perform well." After saying this, the lady in blue disappeared. Zhou Xuanji smiled and felt that it was quite interesting. It seemed that this crisis could be resolved. However, the following crisis might be even greater. He would be dragged into the battle between the original owners and the Sword Emperor. He, who was familiar with the legends of later generations, knew that the original owners would not lose just like that. At least one original owner would live to the end and even establish the Kunlun origin court, creating endless history. Why is the sovereign serendipity born? Did the Sword Emperor create him? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself and closed his eyes to rest. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.